Hello, fermented folks. Welcome to not so much of another episode of Fermented Fiction, because this is an entirely different thing. Tonight, we are doing something we have never done before. We are doing something really fucking cool, and that is book launching for C.S. Humble's last book of his saga. We're talking about Baroness of the Eastern Seaboard. This is book 6 of That Light Sublime saga, or book 3 of That Light Sublime, correct? And then book 6 of the entire ass thing. So I'll let you clear that up.
Perfect. This is book 3 of the Peregrine Estate trilogy, which is a prequel trilogy to That Light Sublime, the original trilogy that came out that's come over the last couple of months.
And then Amidst the Vastness of All Else is the whole thing, correct?
That's the saga. That's the saga title that one day we hope to gain an enormous amount of money to write the other 3 books in the trilogy that I would really love to write.
Hell yeah. Well, we hope for that as well, because this thing kicks ass. And we are going to talk about it tonight. We have a big panel of authors and bookstagrammers and podcasters, and we're going to have a lot of fun debating this thing. So we're going to stick to the fermented format a little bit, but we're also going to vary it up because we're going to debate some different facets and assets of Baroness of the Eastern Seaboard. And then at the end, we are going to do an open panel discussion of the book. All of us have read this book. All of us are really, really jacked to talk about it. But before we do that, let's talk about who the hell all of us even are. And we'll start with the Fermented Fiction crew, because you probably know us already. I'm Clay Vermoem. I'm a horror author and a podcaster, as you can see. And tonight I'm drinking a couple cool things. I am going to be drinking the most Western thing I could find in my parents' liquor cabinet, which is this
bourbon.
I bought
Yellowstone bourbon.
I bought that and put it at the farm.
Travis bought this. He put it at the farm, and I'm going to kill it tonight, I imagine, because there's only that little bit left. So yeah, that should do it. That's me. Travis, who are you? What are you drinking tonight?
I am Travis Vermoem, Clay's brother. I'm just a teacher. I'm not a writer yet. Maybe someday. I'm a voracious reader, though. I love books, as you can plainly see. I decided this is a Western saga, right? Kind of a reimagining of the American West. So I had to get the 2 most Western drinks I could find in my cabinet. PBR for my beer.
Okay.
And Bullet Bourbon for my
Bourbon.
So
Great choice.
Yep. I think Americans perfected whiskey. That's a personal opinion of mine. The Japanese are close on our tail, though. They have some good stuff.
Yeah, they have some good stuff right there.
Very true. A little disrespectful to the Scottish. Jeremy?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Including Scotland, I guess. But yes. I'm Jeremy, and as I said last episode, I am a harmless weirdo, and tonight, what I have is this Woodenville cask strength bourbon, because this is my special occasion bottle, and this feels like a pretty special occasion.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. What's not believable about this? I haven't seen you since my birthday.
I know. Now it's like a birthday gift to me that you're sharing your special beverage with me for this launch. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And next up, we have a newcomer to the podcast. Becca, do you want to tell the good people of YouTube and the greater internet world who you are? And if you're sharing a drink with us tonight, hold that thing up. If you're not, that's totally fine.
Okay, I would love to. So I'm Becca. I typically post on TikTok. I love books, love reading books. So that's kind of my whole thing. And I especially really love horror, all types of horror I will read. And that's, pretty much it, I guess, for me. I just really love reading books and talking about them with people. And in terms I did not get the Western memo. Probably should have thought about that. But I got something that looked cool. I got the Drecker Strawberry Swirly Creamsicle Sour. So
hell yeah.
Yeah, the art got me, and excited for it, and excited to be here.
We're excited to have you, Becca. I think that works perfectly, because that little creature on that can looks like something that might crawl out of one of the mines in C.S. Humble's world. Stay the hell away from that thing. If it starts singing to you, throw it out the window. Josh Rountree, It's exciting to have you on the show, sir. Can you tell the internet who you are, what you do, and what you're drinking with us tonight?
Yeah, I am a writer. I live in Austin, Texas. My latest book is The Unkillable Frank Lightning, which the elevator pitch is Frankenstein in a Wild West show, but, you know, throw in a bunch of black magic and other weird stuff. And a new novella, Summer in the House of the Departed, which is my West Texas Gothic. So kind of a haunted house story. I obviously Seth's from Texas. I'm from Texas, so I brought the most Texas of all drinks, and that is Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper.
And I happen to also be drinking it in an HEB cup. So if you're from Texas, you'll get that one also. So we're full board today.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah. Thank you for being here, Josh. We're excited to have you. And now we're going to welcome back a couple veterans of this program. Let's start with you, Rae, and we'll finish with C.S. Humble, the man of honor tonight. Rae, who are you? Tell the internet if they happen to not already know who you are. They should. Tell them why.
Thanks, Clay. So I'm Rae Wilde. I've also published under the name Rae Knowles, and I'm an author of feminist horror with potentially exciting news coming soon. I can't say anything yet, but potentially. So yeah, my latest book was called I Can Fix Her. It came out from Clash back in June. Toxic, sapphic couple tries again at their relationship, it goes terribly wrong sort of deal. And I am super pumped to be here to talk about the Baroness. I've been pretty public about my diehard status of both C.S. Humble's work and the Baroness in particular. So itching to get into it.
Hell yeah. Thank you for being here, Rae. And you're drinking some strong coffee tonight, right? Because you are over on the East Coast.
I'm on the East Coast. This is a medium latte from Dunkin' Donuts with 5 Splenda. They don't let me drink it anymore as a result of my own actions. So this is as hard as it gets for me. And it's going to get the trick. It's going to do the trick tonight, I think.
Hey, you threw in those 5 Splenda, and that's harder than anyone's heart really should go, especially at this time of night. But I think you can handle it. Real quick, before we go to C.S. Humble, our friend Collin, the last member of the Fermented crew, has joined us. So, Collin, are you ready to tell the internet who you are and what you're drinking with us tonight?
Sure. My name is Collin Poynton, and yeah, I am on the board for Cascade Writers. I'm a writer myself, worked with Clay a lot and the HWA and Cascade Writers out here. And I have High West Double Rye. I have the same thing, but with some whiskey stick aging going on.
Oh yeah.
And then just because I tried that a month ago, I have the Speakeasy Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, which I feel
Yeah, that's a great one. Congratulations for you. I'm a big fan of Speakeasy. That's great.
All right. And that's everybody. That's our panel. C.S. Humble, you're the man of the hour, my friend. Congratulations on your book. Congratulations on completing this saga. We are all proud of you. You've done some great work. Tell everybody who you are and what are you sipping on tonight before we get into these debates?
Hey, well, first of all, let me thank everybody for being here. It means a great deal to me that everyone would take the time to not only read the book, but to be a part of the conversation. So I'm deeply appreciative for each and every one of you. So my name is C.S. Humble. I am a relatively obscure Houstonian author of horror westerns so far. I have another series that came out called Blackwells, which consists of 2 books that saw the wild, which was All These Subtle Deceits and All the Prospect Around Us. You may know me from those works. And I, again, feel deeply compelled to say the level of overwhelm to be able to see these people who I so deeply respect and all of their different capacities and how much they mean to me. Orson Welles said it best, and he says it in his AFI when he accepted the award for the Lifetime Achievement Award from the American Film Institute. He said, I accept this time with you with a full heart. My heart is full, all of it. So thank you, each and every one of you. It means a lot to me. As for the drink tonight, I thought it'd be appropriate to go with the old-fashioned because that sort of goes with me and the books. This one's made with an Evan Williams 100 proof bottled in bond with orange bitters and 2 cherries because I'm a sweet guy and I like sweet things. So thank you all very much for being a part of it. Again, it's a deep appreciation that I have for y'all doing it.
Well, we are stoked to be able to host it here on Fermented Fiction. It's an honor for us too. Cheers, everybody, to Baroness of the Eastern Seaboard.
Cheers. We're toasting.
To that cruel ass sapphic bitch who I love.
Yes, she has trod bloody footprints across all of our hearts, I'm sure.
And handprints on our nads.
Well,
that is correct.
Yes, absolutely. But they're still hanging on, aren't they? Just like us. Let's get into some debates, shall we? Travis, do you want to walk us through the fight cards tonight and kind of let us know what this is going to look like? And I'll kick it over to you for hosting.
Yeah. So we said this was going to be a little different of an episode. So CS, I hope you don't mind if I'm going to pour it on thick here. Please. Welcome, everybody, to the Fight Night, Fermented Fiction Fight Night, to bring out C.S. Humble's Baroness of the Eastern Seaboard to the public, to let everyone know if it's a wonderful book. If it's a trashy book, we have at least one person who's going to argue for that tonight. Rae Wilde Knowles, we're ready to hear you be a troll. I will have everybody's biography when we get to their fight. So we're just going to jump right into the first one. These are going to be 6-minute debates. Nice. She's got the troll hat. That's amazing. 6-minute debates consisting of 2 3-minute bouts. Afterward, we will be able to discuss what we actually thought because we don't want to make liars out of anybody. That is not our game on this show. So if we're ready, we're going to start with Clay Vermolem, our veteran, and our newcomer to the show, Josh Rountree. Are you prepared?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so how these debates work, we're going to have these two people roll a dice, a 20-sided dice. If you need one of us to roll for you, we can do that. I have quite a collection over here. If you don't, he's got one right now. So roll for your numbers while I give the tail of the tape, if I can do so in a professional fashion. In the blue corner, we have a Texas novelist and short story writer. His novel, The Legend of Charlie Fish. I'm pulling this straight off of your biography page from your website, so please don't say anything bad.
In 2012, Josh Rountree.
Exactly. His legend, The Legend of Charlie Fish, was released by Takeon Publications in 2023 to wide acclaim, making the Locust recommended reading list. He's got more than 70 short stories published in a variety of venues. He lives in Austin with his lovely wife of many years and a pair of half-feral dogs, which I relate to very much. That is Josh Rountree in the blue corner. Round of applause, round of applause. Yeah, we're not going to add that in post. I'm just going to say it.
We don't do post.
Yeah, no, we don't do post. This one's going to be fun for me. In the red corner, hailing from the farm of Cutbank, Montana, blood relative of mine, general pain in my ass throughout my entire life. Also an author of short stories, novellas, and a wonderful horror author. I will give him credit for that at least. Writes amazing horror stories. My brother, Clayton Vermolem. Hold for applause, hold for applause. We don't do things in post. All right. Gentlemen, I would like your numbers, please.
I rolled a 12.
A 12.
I rolled 4 higher than that.
Ooh,
let's go.
16. All right. So Clayton gets to argue the Baroness is evil, but he can fix her.
Nope, that's Becca. I will be arguing against Josh Rountree about whether the bad guys have a point.
I'm so sorry. I already mixed up the debate order.
That's all right. We'll fix it in post.
We'll fix it in post. The bad guys kind of had a point. Clayton's going to argue that first. I'm sorry, Becca. We're making you go a little later. That's my fault. I didn't read the email close enough. Oh, well. Are you good with that? You ready to go in 2? All right. So, Josh, you already rolled. So we're going to do it. So the bad guys kind of had a point, and that's going to be Clayton's point. And on the other side, Josh, you're going to argue that the bad guys did not have a point. No way in hell did they have a point. We're going to talk about what we actually thought after our 6 minutes are over. Clayton, you're going to kick us off. Your 3 minutes is going to begin in 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, let's just be honest. Human beings are an inherently vile species, and trying to wipe them entirely off the face of the earth is actually what's best for the earth. We are the earth's fucking cancer. Go get them, Order of Prometheus, okay? Now, these guys, they're just doing the Lord's work, and by the Lord, I mean a Lord that actually exists. Okay. Now, Travis, I know you're Catholic, and I know there's some other Catholics on this podcast, and I'm not throwing any shade at anybody's religion. What I am saying is there's a level of faith in your religion, whereas the Order of Prometheus, they got some proof. They've seen these gods. They have seen them. They have heard them. They have sang with them. They have danced with them. They have paid tribute to them. Now, can you really fault somebody who knows for 100% a fact that their gods exist for worshiping those gods by whatever means those gods require? I don't think so. Now, okay, if I knew that I had access to some almighty cosmic powers and all I had to do was stab somebody once in a while, like, come on, sign me up, baby. Like, I will do that thing. I will do the Lord's work. That work's going to be dirty. That work's going to be hard, but isn't all work worth doing hard? Isn't it all a little dirty? Yeah, I think it is. Now, listen, even if you do love the Peregrine Estate and all the cosmic cock blocking that they want to do to our Order of Prometheus and those people trying to save the world. Now, are they really any better? Ask yourself, are they any less prideful, any less arrogant, any less violent? Even, I will say. What is Judge Ellison's immediate reaction to finding out that his friend was killed by the Baroness? To go after her, kill all of her men, kill everybody serving her, and not really ask any questions till after the fact. And what does he say? Little shoulder shrug. I'll feel bad. I'll feel bad afterwards. He says, well, maybe you should feel bad before if you're such a good fucking guy. Okay. Now, yeah, get off your high horse, buddy. All right, if you're going to try and be the good guys here. Now, such hubris displayed by these people, by the way. They're going to go in the face of proven cosmic entities, and they are going to ride against them. And really, they have nothing else to stand on, okay? This is really, they're getting in the way of the true equality for which the Order of Prometheus stands, and I do not stand for that. I stand with the Order. I stand with the gods, and I cede the last few seconds of my time to Josh Rountree.
Oh, Clayton thinks that he can do it in 20 seconds remaining, that argument was good enough. But Josh, I feel like you got your pistols loaded over there. 3 minutes. Your clock's going to start now. Tell us why the bad guys were not right.
So you make some good points there, but you know what the bad guys really have going against them is they're all fucking assholes. These are people who, you know, you talk about they have this proven religion. They're actually taking their religion and they're trying to put it on top of all of us. Like we all need to worship the same way that they worship. I don't know if there's any other, you know, place in history where we can find parallels, but I think that that's maybe something that we don't want to have them do. Certainly if their religion means that we all have to become a death cult. I feel like that if the Baroness and her ilk get their way, then all of these awful entities are going to come in, and she may like those folks, but maybe some of the rest of us don't want to be with those folks. So, you know, she's an asshole too, because she rides around in her own fucking train. Who has their own fucking train? Every time she's going somewhere, she's going this way and that. She's got her train car. She's torturing somebody. She really gets off on that. I mean, let's just stick to the people she tortures in this book. Let's don't go to some of the others, right? But so she's literally taking a lash to the hook of one of the most badass characters in all of the universe of Seth's book. You know, she gets between people who are in love. She claims to be in love with Clara, and I guess maybe she is, but not enough to keep her from sacrificing her true love to whatever these, feeble gods of hers might be. We're talking about bad guys, so I know it's not. Am I about to run out of time? Let's just say Paul Moody is a fucking asshole, and I know he has nothing to do with the Peregrine estate, but that dude deserves death more than anybody else. And if I was writing this book, I would have Oliver Mayne, the greatest character in the entire saga, shoot his fucking ass between the eyes with a bullet.
Good conclusion. Went a little bit over, but I let it happen because I was incredible. That was incredible.
Absolutely perfect.
All right,
Fuck Paul
Clay,
Moody. I agree.
Josh, and Seth, and anyone else jump in there real quick for the conclusion of our first debate. If we want to talk about this specific subject, I think it has a lot to talk about. Clay, you argued against. Do you actually think these bad guys had a point?
No.
Not at all.
I think fighting for the inherent good in humanity, for love, is a calling above all other callings. I think these people are very, very clearly evil. However, it's pretty easy to, make the argument for the Call of Cthulhu. So that's what I was sort of going for there. Something, Travis, you've talked about a lot is the evil is not an absence of the good, or the evil is not this even opposing force necessarily, but more something that pulls you away from the good. And I do feel like that is sort of the whole order of Prometheus's deal and everything they worship. It is this calling. It is this sort of pulling towards something darker, something deeper, something evil, something ancient and old that should remain buried. And the thing that the Peregrine Estate is fighting for the entire book is love, is friendship and companionship, and those are the best parts of what humanity is. And if you're not fighting for that, then you're an asshole.
Yeah, and the fact that she sacrifices her love, I think that really highlights that whole thing. Like, that's basically showing you the differences in the two sides, where basically our heroes in this book are fighting to keep their love, and she's, at all costs, basically, and she's willing to just give hers away for this other end.
Yeah. And I will hold my comments to that end because I still have to debate for the Baroness.
Totally great.
Debate for or
it bears
against.
repeating. Oliver Mayne, like, as much as Rae obsesses over the Baroness, that's me with Oliver Mayne. I think he's the best character in all of Seth's books, and I'm waiting for like the standalone adventures of novels. So
Oliver Mayne be my number one any day, and he could have me if he so chose.
Hell yeah,
I agree.
brother.
I love it. I do. I'm going to throw some questions in.
I'd holster that pistol.
Going to throw some questions in as we go because I want to get Seth. I want to get you your book as much kind of talk as we can. So I'm throwing one to you right away, Becca, if that's all right.
Yeah,
I was on Book Talk for quite a while before I got rid of all social media because I'm a frightened Luddite. But on Book Talk, I know that a lot of the things people look for are kind of recommendations that help them gravitate towards these things that they really know and love as tropes. And I know one of those is both this kind of romance and also the cosmic horror of like this very drastic good versus very drastic evil, as opposed to another trope that happens. I think, Seth, you do them both in your books, but is the kind of morally gray where it's like we're getting people who we can't really tell which side's the right side, and that's kind of sexy in a way. But can you maybe speak to that of like why is that such a pull for the common reader, do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think like tropes are really important on social media, or people really gravitate towards those because it's a quick little advertisement for what you think you're going to get out of a book. And this book definitely has a lot of them going on. I mean, in this book, Baroness, Eastern Seaboard, we see like there's romance. There is, as you mentioned, like a lot of cosmic horror. And there's a lot of, like morally gray things happening. And I think this is, it's like good for readers to know, or what I talk about on social media is maybe not just the romance, but kind of what you're expected to get and what other media you might consume that is similar. So I know I've like compared it to like similar Western vibes as kind of the Dark Tower series-ish, or like, I mean, like if you're thinking about like Western, because I think a lot of people don't really read Western horror that much. So I think it's important to kind of get people who like that media to also, or like those tropes, to also read new ones, especially by indie authors. And I don't know if I lost that question kind of somewhere in there. I went a
I
little.
think you did great.
I think you did great. Seth,
Crushed it.
when you're kind of creating clearly evil characters, as Clay and Josh just agreed on, but also trying to keep it within this world of like, not everyone is always doing the right thing, even our heroes. Is that a struggle as a writer, or how do you go about that process?
Every villain is the hero of their own journey, and all of their methods, all of their goals, all of their aims, they represent a type of utopia which presents to them the world that they want to live in. And so I wouldn't say that the Baroness or the Society of Prometheus, I wouldn't say that they're wrong. I would simply say that the world that they present to us is a world that very few of us would want to live in. It's certainly a selfish world. It's a cold world. And in a way, the Society of Prometheus represents the type of world that most men want to live in, one that is presented as a world of merit, that in a way that we are subservient to the merit, a meritocracy. And I think that there's a certain attitude that's presented where, how do I say this without sounding like a dickhead? I don't think it's possible. I know a lot of men that want to bend the knee to something that they see as higher than themselves. That's why we see so many men who love the alpha male culture. They love people like Andrew Tate, who is 100% the biggest dickhead I've ever seen in the history of social media. And I think that while men suggest they want to be the leader of the pack, I've met very few men who wouldn't be happy to bend the knee to the strongman trope or the Ubermensch, right? The Society of Prometheus represents that attitude of, I would love to submit to a god I cannot understand, because then I don't have to come to call. I don't have to take accountability for the actions that I take. That's what Cthulhu represents, or the old ones. They just like, hey man, it's just unknowable. Like, how am I supposed to know? Right? And that sort of persistence toward ignorance, it suggests this idea that I don't have to apologize for the world that I've made. I made it in subservience to something higher than myself, which is in many ways the dark cop-out of a lot of faithful arguments. To answer that question.
Yeah, great answer, Jeremy. And then we'll transition with you right into our next debate.
Oh boy. Well, it's this is piggybacking a little bit off of the thing about a meritocracy, and I think many people would agree with the meritocracy in theory, but the issue that I've run into in the people that are that would promote such a thing is the idea of deciding what has merit. And usually the people who are deciding what has merit is just a bunch of dickheads almost all the time. Like 100% in my research. I'm sure there's more out there.
Totally.
I think there's a
But
I think there's a level of being a dickhead you have to believe you are the one who is capable of defining what merit is.
Yeah, if you feel like you are the sole arbiter of what has merit, I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but you are a dickhead. A little bit.
Correct. It's real small dick energy, if I can just be straight out of the gate about it.
Hey, I'm sure their penises are of a perfectly normal shape and size. I'm certain.
Right.
All right, we're
Maybe.
already off. We're already off the Baroness's rails. And I love it.
Mhm.
So, next debate we have up here, and I'm actually reading the email correct this time. Once again, apologies to you, Becca. It's not a fermented fiction episode if I don't mess something up, because that happens frequently. But second debate we have on the docket is the fermented fiction veterans, Jeremy and Collin. Roll your dice while I introduce you in your corners, and have your numbers ready for me, please. All right.
And before you do that, Trav, Collin and Jeremy, who are you debating for? Because I kind of left it open ended, but like, what's the high roll? What's the roll low here for the coolest
Yeah,
members of the
let us-
Gunfighter Guild?
What do you think?
Well, I suppose, and I will preface this by saying that while our illustrious guest has done perhaps the unthinkable in actually getting me to read one of our guests' works of fiction, I have read one book of this series and vast saga. So I would put forth, your boys Larry and Sven, I believe, took the top spots for me.
Collin, is it Larry and Sven?
My choice is Belle Star. I assume it's
Bell?
pronounced Belle and not Bella because she's not Italian.
Okay. Let's say, okay, so Bell and who else?
My second choice was Larry.
Okay, so let's
right.
cut the middle there. We'll say
Okay.
high roll is Larry, low roll is Bell. Good?
Perfect.
Good. All right. Roll the dice. High roll Larry, low roll Bell. As we do that, people, in the red corner, the person who just waxed philosophical about those who believe in meritocracy, whether or not you agree with him, is Jeremy Hutspin, fresh from the sweltering camaraderie of Travis's office, right behind me, fighting out of a heap of disused exercise equipment in his in-laws' basement, somewhere between 33 and 4.5 million years old, at the height of 1 foot 2.25 inches. Known for using his oppressive reach to make wide.
I will have to
wild,
say that's
logical leaps.
1.25 clays.
No, I'm going to just say it, keep it at interest. Logical leaps anyone has ever seen, weighing in at an even 90,000 galactic standard tons. The undisputed biggest fan of the live-action Speed Racer film the world has ever known, Jeremy "Bear Me" Hudson. Hold for applause.
What an intro, my guy. That was
That's a
fucking
great-
fire.
Tremendous.
And out of the blue corner, his day job is firing ionizing radiation through people's bodies while telling them to hold still. Look out, because he brings that X-ray vision to his debates too. Any opponent's weakness will get seen. With a master's degree in philosophy, Collin, the dialectic dueler, sports that 1-2 punch of logic and wisdom that sends combatants into existential crisis. The Renaissance man can wax poetic as an author of speculative fiction. One thing's for sure, after a knockout, he'll tell a story of his victory and make it a memorable one. Collin.
Damn, you guys brought the heat on those things.
They
Nice.
brought the heat.
Great.
They were fun to read. All right. Let me hear those numbers, Jeremy and Collin.
Oh, yeah.
I got an 11.
Well, and
You got a what?
11.
Double ones.
All right.
Wow. Well, I got a 7. So that's
All right. We're starting with Collin then. Your 3 minutes. You have to argue why Larry is the best of the duelers.
Wait.
Are you ready?
What if I argue for
I mean, maybe
Bell.
they should just argue the ones they want,
Yeah,
the
sure.
ones they brought.
You want to argue for Bell? You go for
Yeah,
it.
fuck
let's
them
just do
dice,
that.
baby. Talk for
Yeah.
whatever you want to talk
Fuck the
about.
dice.
Throw it out the window. Fix it in post. Collin, are you ready? In 3, 2, 1. Why is Bell the best? Go.
Okay, well, I've learned from the Gunslingers that first you have to take a moment of calm and remove all of your worries and fear and let it drop away like a Zen master. Excellent. Excellent vintage on that whiskey stick infused High West double rye. First of all, Larry sucks. Larry doesn't know shit. He's not good, and he just fucking quits the Gunslingers Guild. So there's your gunslinger that Jeremy's gonna argue for. Meanwhile, a gold pin, Bell Star. I'm just gonna read you this poetry. From out of the drawing room came a dark-haired figure, gliding gracefully through the portrait-still crowd, wrapped in emerald silk with a sash of fire-red fox fur across one shoulder and a golden pin upon her breast. She wore her ferocity as a queen wears a crown. That's our introduction to Bell Star. I mean, do I need I go on? She is incredible in every way. First of all, she's totally fine with Sven and Larry and their love for one another. She completely understands the social situation at hand and how a lot of people are upset about that. And also that may void the rules of which all the gunslingers are supposed to abide by in this organization. And all the while, she does it completely gracefully. She's the announcer for the entire event that begins, this whole book, really, their relationship and the first duel that we see. And she's just unbelievably charismatic. I mean, there's a lot of memorable things in this book. Anything with Belle Starr is some of the most memorable scenes in the entire book. Her in front of the fire talking to Larry. It goes on and on. She's just incredible. And I think the beautiful thing is that there are gunslingers who are good at gunslinging. There's Belle Starr, who's in the top 3 best ever. And she knows exactly what she is and who she stands for. She is clearly incredibly sexual and knows it and doesn't have a problem flaunting it and knows you can't touch this because she'll kill you instantly. She's just the whole package you love. I mean, she's like a goddess. She's Aphrodite. She's got everything. You can't argue against that. She's the best.
Incredible.
All right. You concede your time.
Absolute
Collin.
dog.
I think that was a fantastic argument, although I would compare her more to Athena because Athena kicks Ares' ass all across Troy.
I was thinking that too. I was like, Athena, maybe.
Great goddess. Jeremy, why is Larry better than Belle? How do you follow that? Go 3, 2, 1.
Well, you see, and I think we can all agree that Belle, as a character, is someone that, yes, we'd all hit that, and yes, we would all die in the process. Obviously. There's no one who could make a reasonable argument against that. But when it comes to, like, cool factor, there are several criteria we can use to judge this mathematically. Now, when we do so, we take into account vibes, like initial vibes of people, because, sometimes cool is about the vibe. Then there's cool stuff, which, you got to do cool stuff to be cool. If somebody does the most cool stuff, they're clearly the coolest, right? And then third, there's stuff that sucks. A category of this grading system that I invented specifically for Paul Moody. So when we take this into account, my top 2 picks are, of course, Sven Eriksson, who had cool vibes and a total of 3 notably cool things happen within the book that he is a part of. Larry, on the other hand, does not begin with cool vibes, but he has a total of 8 separate incidents within the book where he rules. So therefore, with a tied score with Sven, who only does 3 cool things, Larry is easily at the top spot. He doesn't care who won the duel between, the highest ranking silver pins, because, who gives a shit? To him, taking absolutely no shit from Michael Horner on the train, challenging Paul Moody to a duel that he doesn't know if he's going to win, but it's the right shit to do. There's his countdown, collecting his bounty people, retiring just to go save his husband. Great. Sniping the lookout. Also great. Going Terminator mode once he's done doing that. And then a thing that I have written down as having his retirement and eating it too. So he plays them. He plays the whole Gunfighters Guild, walks away scot-free, and lives presumably happily ever after. Larry rules. And I didn't start out the book thinking that way.
Time. Good timing, sir. Real quick from both of you, because I feel like you gave your true opinions. Collin, is Bell your favorite of the Gunfighters Guild?
Bell is my favorite, yes. Although Larry is close. He is my second favorite. And I agree with Jeremy that he gets better over the course
I love
of the novel.
that. I love some growth. We're going to talk about the characters in the open discussion because that is a whole can of worms to open. Seth, you are brilliant at writing characters. Jeremy, did you think what you believe Larry is the best of the Gunfighters Guild?
Well, yes. Well, technically, as I said in my debate, he is tied with Sven for the top spot, but because Larry didn't start off with cool vibes, he wins that for me. And I can actually do my entire ranking. So you have Sven and Larry at the top,
Okay.
with 8 points each. I did this with math because why not? Oliver Main, 7 points. That's mostly vibes because he does 2 cool things in this entire book. It's pretty good. Bell, 6 points, a respectable showing, tied with Red.
Also, I wanna pause you right there because the vibe rating is very pertinent. I believe the kids call it these days aura farming. I just want to bring us into the modern day.
I'm not one of the kids.
So many bushels of aura coming off Oliver Main. So many
aura.
bushels. Just pouring in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So Michael Horner in the second to last spot with 1 point because he does one cool thing. And hey, that's pretty cool. And then there's Paul Moody, who has a total score of -2. He's
lovely.
He sucks. He can suck my butt.
Josh,
nobody in the book needs killing more than he does.
Josh, would you put your boy at number 1 and do that ranking system?
Oh, for sure. But I will tell you also, we meet Oliver Main in San Antonio Mission too, so he does a lot of really cool stuff in that book before this one comes along. So I'm definitely influenced by that a little bit. But joking aside, I will say that that chapter magnum opus of Oliver Main is probably my favorite single chapter in all 6 books. It stands alone as just a brilliant little vignette that sort of digs right into the psyche of that character and also into Red. And I mean, it's just killer. I absolutely love that section. And so that really elevates it. But yeah, I was already down with Oliver before this book too.
Right on. Clay, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to say that you do a really good job in this book, Seth, of making it readable for somebody who has read only your first book and only your last book. That is me. I am reading Red Winter right now, but like that is that's where I'm at. I jumped ahead to this one so we could do this whole thing, and it was still extremely readable, my man. It was still, I was able to jump in and enjoy the whole thing. There was complete arcs. There was lots of fun, but I could definitely tell where it was like, okay, this is wrapping something up of a 6-book saga, Right. And the Oliver Main thing and Red Vermilion was very evidently that thing. I still thought it was awesome. Like you said, Josh, I think that would stand alone as a great short story. Mm-hmm. It was just a great, totally. It was a great, you didn't need all the context. I didn't need to know who Oliver Main was or who Red Vermilion was to be like, yeah, this is 2 badasses, like going head to head. This is the final stand for at least one of them, right? If not both of them. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it stood out really, really, really strongly too. And I knew that I was missing like 98% of the context, and I didn't even care. I was like, this is really cool. So kudos to you on that, man. I want to make sure and get you that compliment at some point in this podcast.
Hey, and hearing you say that you're starting to read Red Winter in the West, all I can say is just buckle up. that book was rough. That book was rough.
Nice. Love that. Collin. And then I want to field the question to Rae, bring you into the conversation.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk more about what everybody thinks about their favorite gunslingers later.
We can. I'm definitely going to ask about characters.
Cool.
Yeah.
Then I'll save it. But I have more to say about Larry and why I like him.
All right.
They call that a
Crazy
tease in radio. That's a tease.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, stick around, like and subscribe, everybody. My God.
First, you have to like and subscribe,
Yeah.
donate to our Patreon, and then you'll
Click
get-
that button.
Yeah, and buy all of C.S. Humble's books.
You have 8 people
Also
telling you
that.
to subscribe and like and share. Come on.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Rae, I want to field this to you first, and then I want to hear from you, CS. A little brief question on characters. Seeing as you described your latest book as one that is clearly about a toxic relationship, I know it's probably tempting for a lot of people to write characters that they either very, very fully understand the best and worst parts of them or make all the right decisions. I don't know if I feel like that's probably a temptation to a lot of writers. How hard is it as an author to do the necessary thing of writing characters that do shitty things, weak things? I'm thinking specifically of one of my favorite war films is Dunkirk. And I just love that representation in Harry Styles' character of like, this guy's kind of a scumbag, but he's also one that I probably would do the same thing in his situation. Like, I can't assume that I would be the valiant hero. I might just be the guy that lets his friend drown so that he can live. And like, how hard is it to get in those headspaces and then come out and have to write heroic characters at the turn of a dime?
That's a great question, Travis. I think I personally have the opposite problem as an author. It feels a lot more earnest and natural to me to write characters that are weak at times and flawed and selfish. And because I have been weak at times and flawed and selfish. So that is behavior that I can understand. It would be a lot more difficult for me to write a purely heroic character. And I say would be because I don't know that I've ever done it. And I imagine that's easier for some people. You know, maybe there are authors out there, I would imagine, who have an easy time putting themselves in the shoes of somebody that always makes the right call. But that's never been me. And I don't think we're in danger of me becoming heroic anytime soon. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Well, thank you for the earnest answer. And I'm probably more towards your side. Although, you know, I've had that time where I think every teenage boy or college age guy has probably had like I would save this person. Like if someone broke in right now. And I always am like, probably you wouldn't. Probably you just
Yeah.
I actually think perhaps the biggest challenge for an author, at least that I can imagine in terms of character, would be to build a super heroic character that comes off as believable and also having depth. Because I think obviously people have done it well, of course, but I've also seen plenty of examples where they feel shallow. They don't necessarily feel believable. And I've even read examples where it feels like, ooh, this is really a stand-in for the author and who they would like to be, or like who they envision themselves as currently. And that's sort of an awkward feeling.
Yeah, the little
or like this is the point of the book, right? Like this
Right.
is what the book's about. This is what you should. Yeah.
Right. Here's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
You know?
To that, CS, I don't think you've done that. You've written both. You've blended the heroic and the cowardice and the evil and the good. And can you maybe take us real briefly through how that comes about? I don't want you to dive too far into your character creation because I think that'll be a good bulk of our conversation. But
Sure. I think that I think one of in working with Rae, as much as I've worked with her over the last 2 years, I do believe that there's a hero inside of all of us. And I do think that there are certainly leanings of heroism. I think that inside of every person, there's an idiom of heroism that we all speak, or at least that we all want to speak, right? We want to believe that. And sometimes being the hero isn't as important as believing in heroism. One of the great lines from George R. R. Martin writes in A Game of Thrones, the first novel in Song of Ice and Fire, is one of his children says, well, what if I'm afraid? And Eddard Stark says, well, that's the only time a man can be brave is when he is afraid, right? And so believing in that thing, which is one of my favorite lines from Shorthand Lions, is sometimes it's just worth believing. Like the belief is enough, right? To sort of hope that virtue into the world. And a lot of the characters that I write, I won't dive too deep into this for your sake, Travis. They have a stern belief in what they choose to be. And whether or not that always goes their way is irrelevant. The fact that they believe it is the important thing. And for me, that's one of the things that makes characters very real.
I love that, Seth. And I will tell you right now, people listening, if you ever wonder if you should buy this man's books, he just made my quote book right under St. Therese of Lisieux and Aristotle, because I love that. Sometimes being the hero isn't as important as believing in heroism. I carry that in my pocket every day, so you'll be with me, man. All right.
Wonderful. I'm happy to be there.
Wild books, everybody.
All right, we are going to move on to our third debate, which was supposed to be our first debate. Sorry for my dog barking in the background. Becca, are you ready for your debut on Fermented Fiction?
I'm so ready. So excited.
All right. So Clay and Becca will be debating The Baroness is evil, but I can fix her. And they're going to roll a d20 dice to decide. The higher roll will have to argue that, yes, she can be fixed. And the lower roll will have to argue, she's gone. She gone. She gone. She gone. All right. So roll your dice. As I introduce Becca, I'm not going to introduce Clay again. He only gets it one time. All right. In the red corner, Clayton Vermolin, my brother. I already introduced you. Hold for applause. In the blue corner, we have Becca, a bookish content creator who loves reading great books. She reads a wide range of genres, but primarily focuses on fantasy, horror, and anything weird. She prioritizes reading diverse stories that feature queer characters. Becca's passionate about sharing her love of reading with others and amplifying the work of indie authors to larger audiences. When she's not raving about the books she loves on the internet, she's usually firefighting firewalls, going on adventures, and frolicking through the woods of the Pacific Northwest. Becca.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do love a good frolic.
Yeah. You need to bring more frolicking back. That's what I run on. Bring more frolicking back. All right. Give me your dice numbers, people.
I got 13.
11.
Ooh, 13 for Becca, 11 for Clay. That means, Becca, you're going to start us off with your 3 minutes, and you're going to tell everybody why the Baroness is evil, but you, Becca, you can fix her.
You can do it.
Awesome.
3, 2, 1, go.
So ultimately, the Baroness, I think if you break down her character, she is really a lover girl. She just wants to push her love everywhere. I mean, you could see it in her letters. She does use some I statements, but I think ultimately her goal is to bring equality to everyone. And I think that's really important. And, as someone who works in a very male dominated field, sometimes you want to be, the best and you want to be the leader. And I think that's what she wants to be. And, she's just treating men the way that they've treated her, which I think is pretty fair. And I think it's, it is what it is. And also she wants to, there's a specific quote that's, her master wants not for her to descend, but ascend. And that's really what she's going through this book. And she's ascending to her best potential. And, she does it with somewhat good intentions. Maybe there's, some evil going on, but she really wants to bring the world back to where it was, back to where everyone just had a clean slate. She just wants to be with her wife. And she does have some quirks. She does do some things that, may be questionable to us. But I think, she had some resolve to it. And, murderous tendencies, maybe she has them. Who knows? Exactly. And I think it's important to support women's rights and women's wrongs. And as a woman, I would need to support her in both of those things. I think it's only right, equality for all the sexes. and equality for everyone who's, you know, feeling certain things. I guess, like, you know, I think if she was rehabilitized, like, I think she could go through that. I'm not saying that this is the end of her story. Like, she could, you know, if she spent, let's say in this world, there's like some sort of like mental institution. I think if she spent like 10 or 20 years there, she might be reformed afterwards. You know, she might have something coming on. And yeah, I think it's just really important for women to be in leadership positions. And, you know, I'm not saying that, like, you know, I can fix her. I think I could be, you know, a good role model, but not a lover, because I like my life, but like, you know, someone to look up to. And yeah, you know, I think she has good qualities in there. And yeah, she's a wonderful leader. There's that. So I think if we really focus on the good parts of her, you know, she can be fixed, the ones that are in there. And yeah, that's I see the rest of my time.
Becca, that was wonderful. That made me believe that you know, all she needs is a lovely frolic. That's what she
Exactly.
needs. Right. Okay. Clayton, no, you think she's just an evil bitch.
I do think that. And there's a couple reasons. I'm going to start with the reason that Josh Rountree so poignantly brought up. She has her own fucking train. Fuck this bitch, yo. Like, if you have your own train in the Old West, you are certifiably an asshole. Like, because that means a lot of things, okay? That doesn't just mean you have the capital to buy the train. Because this motherfucker's going everywhere with this train. This means she also has some high-end deals, or she has personally, like, she has personally built railroads, like rail tracks to wherever she needs to go. And I can tell you from studying the Old West, none of that was done too above the belt. None of that was done in a super moral way. I can guarantee you she's got her hands in some pretty shady pockets, and she is gripping those balls to the point of bluing them. Now, you said she has murderous tendencies. Who knows? I know. Because she fucking murders everybody that she comes into contact with in this book, including Claremy. I don't care what she says in her letter. This is abusive relationship. This is a manipulative relationship. This is a relationship where she lures Claremy to her sacrificial altar and stabs her as Claremy's like, hey, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with this. And she's like, there's one way to get comfortable, baby, and it's to fucking die. All right? This is the ultimate comfort my God can offer you, and here it is. And that is it for old Claremy. Sweet words aside, everything else aside, it's all downhill from there. And look, Sven and Larry, that's love, baby. That's love. And they are held up against each other like a mirror, right? Like Larry, he drops everything to go after Sven. He retires from the Gunfighters Guild. He quits everything he has ever known to go and save his husband at the sacrifice of everything else. Like, retirement for the Gunfighters Guild is not just my job's over. It means you are now a target for everyone in the Gunfighters Guild to go kill a former high-ranking member of the guild. Now, I don't see the Baroness sacrificing literally anything in this book. Now, I'm sure she does that maybe at some other point in the saga, but in this book, she's just an asshole through and through. She tortures people. She flays people alive. She stabs her own lover in the chest after writing extremely manipulative, shitty letters to her. And she tortures my boy Sven. So, like, I got no sympathy for her. Okay? Deplorable, but she delights in abject torture. It's deplorable, no matter what way you look at it, no matter what your sex you are. That is evil incarnate. And fuck the Baroness, she can go downhill.
All right, Clayton, you know, that was fantastic. Reynolds has her hand up. I just want to ask one question to you, and this is, you know, against the debate format, but is she hot though?
I assume
okay.
So.
Rae, let's go to you, and then let's get the opinions from both Becca and Clay. But I want to give you your time. You got your hand up there.
I just obviously have to jump in on this because have we considered hashtag boss bitch? Have we considered yes when we're
I I consider both of those things,
Mhm.
and I do think they both
know-
apply, Ray. I think those are both extremely valid hashtags for the Baroness. That doesn't make her not an asshole.
I think we just need to take those into our hearts when
Sure.
we're
Right?
the Baroness.
It's hard to overcome hashtag I have a fucking train.
Counterpoint, Josh. Okay, this is also for anyone who enjoyed the Baroness. I need to recommend A Red Winter in the West, where we get, because I'm hearing that you have a lot of feelings. There's a lot of feelings on this panel about the train.
Mhm.
But I would like to bring up that in A Red Winter in the West, we get what I call the horny train ride from hell. And it is some of the most confusing and fun times that I've had reading the book. So I just want to push back for the
Yeah,
rest.
ask Carson about the train.
Nobody's interested in what Carson thinks. Horny train ride from hell.
All right. All right. I love it.
I mean, what else do you need?
That'll make you feel some feelings.
Becca, we need to know. Do you really think, can you fix her, gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss?
Okay, I will say, I think the Baroness is a really interesting character, and I think her motivations, while they might come from maybe a redeemable place, like her actions do not constitute something that is okay to do. Personally, I think once you literally dance in the blood of your enemies, there's not much coming back from that. And so I don't know if I have the ability to fix her. Maybe someone does, but
Yeah,
not me.
this whole topic felt a little to me like asking that question about the demon at the end of the Evil Dead remake, where like the blood rain has come, like can we actually make her not blood rain demon? I don't know. Clay, what do you think?
I do agree with you, Becca. I think she's a solid character, a solid villain, well-rounded, interesting. I built a lot of my arguments for this position in case I rolled higher early in the book. And then she stabbed Claremy in the chest. And I was like, wow, I'm going to have to rethink some of this shit. But like with the letters and stuff, I was actually like, I had a lot of strong arguments there. I was like, yeah, she seems to, she seems to care about Clara and seems to have something good going for her. But there at the end, it was pretty clear that her motivations were very selfish, I guess. And I think to me, that's the hardest thing I think that's the most villainizing thing about her is the degree of self-absorption that she has, where it supersedes every other choice or every other moral objection she might have throughout the story. I still think she was really well-rounded, and I think that makes her a good villain. I also think she's a zealot, ultimately. Like, she's putting her faith above everything else, and that was also an argument for it. I was like, yeah, a lot of people do that, So, like, again, I think a good, solid character, but I definitely wouldn't even try to fix her. I can't fix myself, so.
The thing, and the thing is she does, and tell me if I'm wrong, Seth, she loves Claremy. Otherwise, the sacrifice wouldn't work. She specifically asked her, "Do you love me?" right before she kills her. She says, "Yeah." So there is love in her heart. I don't know if she has an expectation that doing this somehow she might be reunited with her when everything comes. Theoretically, when the Society Prometheus meets their goals, will she be rewarded with her love again, or is she knows she's making that sacrifice forever? I don't know.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point, Josh. And I do get the vibe that she makes this choice not thinking she will never see Claremy again. And if that were what she believed, perhaps she would not have made it. I guess I just have a problem with non-consensual sacrifice.
Yeah, no. Oh, I'm not defending the sacrifice. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on in her head.
Yeah. As a few points of order with this, all the evidence in the book does point to the fact that the Baroness loves as a means to an end in order to make the sacrifice. She loves because she needs to love something to make the sacrifice. And my second point of order is that I would for sure go on a killing spree to rescue my beautiful, wonderful wife. And I have specifically asked my dog to kill me if I ever tell her to eat my wife. So,
Perfect.
there's that, you know?
Good for
I
you,
feel
Jeremy.
like fixing at that point is just off the table, maybe. Would be too far gone.
I will say I have a question specifically surrounding their relationship, but I'm going to save it for the open discussion because I think it's one that'll hopefully breed more conversation. I just want to say, and I mean this as a compliment, CS, I make a lot of comparisons on this show, and this whole vibe of the Baroness in a lot of really good ways reminded me of Dracula from the Castlevania anime series, and how that ending could have played out differently, and it did in that show versus your book. And I don't know. I love characters like that where it's like sacrifice and love are the central focal points of their whole existence. So we're gonna get right into our final debate before we take a 10-minute break for everybody to use the bathroom, maybe refill their drinks. But before we do that, the big central debate of the podcast today. No dice are going to be rolled because these people have come with their opinions pre-made. And I just want to tell you, these are some strong opinions. In the red corner, and again, I'm so sorry, this is going to come straight off of your bio on your website. So if you don't like it,
Update your websites, people. This is on you.
Rae Knowles is a queer woman who holds a BA in English language and literature with a minor in creative writing. Her debut novel, The Stradivarius, released May 23, her sapphic horror novella Merciless Waters in November of 23, and her collaboration with April Yates, Lies That Bind, in February of 24. Her short stories have been published widely by publications such as Seize the Press, Dark Matter Inc., and Nose Touch Press. Rae is represented by Collin Geyser at Art House Literary, and today she will be arguing that this book that we are discussing, The Baroness of the Eastern Seaboard, is a big pile of dog shit. And against her in the blue corner is the author of the hour, the one who wrote the 6 books you have all followed up until this day, the Amid the Vastness of All Else pen creator, the one, the only C.S. Humble, people. Hold for applause. All right, Rae and CS, this one will work more like our traditional debate. We got 10 minutes on the clock, no filibustering, but I will not cut you off at 5 minutes. You have the whole 10 for both of you. So if you want to interrupt each other, if you want to talk over, that is totally allowed. But as always, we will start with the offensive. So, Rae, tell us why this book, Baroness of the Eastern Seaboard, is a pile of dog shit. Go.
So, Travis, tonight I'm doing the important work of giving voice to perhaps the most censored group, perhaps the most marginalized group on the internet, and that is the troll. And in true troll fashion, I have rewritten the rules to suit my needs tonight. So rather than the usual format, I think that Seth has some things to answer for. So I will be conducting sort of an interview style interrogation, if you will. And I'm very happy to get started at this time. Seth, question number 1. As a man, will you apologize?
That's a great question. I would actually say, yes, I'm happy to apologize for the challenges that the book represents to those who are unwilling to face their own toxic masculinity. I think that we should all apologize for being unwilling to take account of the benefit that we've received from patriarchy. I think that I should also apologize for not having celebrated sapphic literature as much as I did in the early portion of my writing career. So in this way, I'm happy to apologize, but I will say this. While I am willing to apologize for those things, I do not apologize for my position on the Baroness of the Eastern Seaboard.
Interesting. Question number 2. Baroness of the Eastern Seaboard is dedicated to me. Can you talk a little bit about how the dedication made the sapphic relationship between the Baroness and Clara May so compelling? Was it magic or something else?
Magic is an interesting thing to talk about. I think that the dedication is a representation of the vast amount of change that can happen very quickly in a person's life when they meet someone of an opposing viewpoint. That change can come quickly, sometimes violently, and that is not always a bad thing. Violence is a poor tool, but it's a tool nonetheless. And I would say that by understanding the position of women in a greater capacity, I was able to write women more correctly. I would say that the compelling aspect is, as James Baldwin says, that all at once I begin to lose my own self-fascination. And once I lose that, I understand that the world around me is a more beautiful place. And in understanding that, I no longer see people who are different than me as a threat, but see them as an opportunity. And so the book is dedicated to Rae for allowing me to embrace that opportunity.
Very good. Related question. How did you, a man, make the sex scenes so emotionally resonant and grounded? For example, there's not a single instance of boobs bouncing breastily in the novel. Was
Weak
it
point of the book, honestly.
or did you use a woman as a ghostwriter?
No, there were no women ghostwriters harmed in the writing of this book. So I've only previously had one sex scene in a novel, but I do have a very stringent position on sexual intimacy. And I firmly believe in writing sex from a place of both characters having both power and a powerlessness inside of that moment. I try to write sex from a position of, no pun intended. I try to write sex from a place of, it is a place where both characters get to win inside of a scene. Hopefully, if everybody's doing the things they're supposed to be doing and communicating well with one another and taking time to appreciate the other person's body. But sex in a novel or sex in the written form can be a representation of the moment where readers may have experienced this, or the less fortunate have not, where a moment where two souls can kiss. And I think that Larry's representation, Larry and Sven's relationship is a representation of two people finding both the mirror of the other person and their cosmic match. So no women were used in the writing of this novel. Though I did receive several notes about writing a sex scene in San Antonio Mission from one author on this panel who shall go nameless.
Back to boy stuff. Can you talk a little bit about the mythology behind the Gunfighters Guild? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how often do you think the average dude fantasizes about being a sharpshooter?
That's a great question. 10 out of 10. I can see the hands from my fellow. Oh, I got an 8, also from Clay. 10 out of 10. I would say 9 out of 10 because there's always the exception to the rule. But 9 times out of 10, men like to view themselves as estimably capable in every single type of scenario. Many of us, and us, I mean men, believe someone comes into my place, they're getting blasted, right? Never taking into account, or they take into account all the fantasy and none of the reality of the tremendous amount of fear that they are feeling in that moment. But we all want to believe that we are Doc Holliday. We all want to believe that we have the steely nerve of a Han Solo. and there's a certain amount of fantasy that lives inside of every man who thinks that he is in fact the hero of his own story and the only hero that the world is interested in, which is of course a fallacy. The mythology, 90% of us are like, yes, Ike Clanton from the Clanton or from the Cowboy gang in Tombstone, a great reference, tremendous job, Clay. The mythology of the Gunfighters Guild exists because of the toxic, hyper-competitive nature that has been built up around American men. And that is, there is only one thing that matters, and that is being acknowledged as being the best. It is the presentation of self, which is why all of them are cool and have a very, meandering gait and seem to walk inside of the world with a fear that exists inside of all of us in the real world. But the mythology of it is wrapped up in the idea of one of my own toxic challenges, which is, what if it would mean if I was the best? What if I was peerless? And I think that that's a challenge for a lot of men, probably unrecognized. But the guild's mythology is all wrapped up in a singular idea of what does it mean to be the best? And even if you are, there comes with it a little acclaim, but no virtue, right? What do you do for a living? I kill people. I am the best at ending life in the world. There's no virtue in that. It is all selfishness. It's all vanity. Is it cool? Sure as shit, it's cool, right? But, what does a person profit if they gain all the world but lose their humanity? To paraphrase, as Travis will know, I stole that out of a New Testament beatitude. Right. Great question. It's a good test. Good test.
Moving on. Shockingly, the Gunfighters Guild is run by a woman, Belle Starr. What can you tell us about her, and do you think I could get it?
Yes. Number one, let's all recognize on this panel that author Rae Wilde could absolutely get that Belle Starr, right?
Certainly.
The Gunfighters Guild is led by a trio of three people, three golden pins, but the voice of the guild is fully represented inside of Belle Starr, who is every inch of cool that every man wants to be in the world. She walks into a room, she owns the room. She speaks, everyone listens. And when she stands up, nobody sits, right? She is a representation of what it means to be the fully confident power inside of a room. And it's why that whenever Larry comes before the Gunfighters Guild, she sits there and she's the only person who gets to speak for the other two. There's an implicit trust, or I'm trying to present that inside of strong women, men should place an implicit trust that they do not even need to be present in order for those strong women to make decisions that are best for everyone. That's Belle Starr. And yes, absolutely, you could hit it, sister. 100%.
Huge win. I'm going to buy another copy of the book. All right, Seth. So the central conflict of this book follows Larry and Sven as they fight for one another against all odds. They're both men, which is gay. I've seen lots of Westerns. I haven't, that's a lie. But I don't remember any having gay characters. So how do you explain that? Okay, were there gay people in the West or not?
Can confirm that the beautifulness of gayness has been with us since the beginning of time. And this is a great point by Travis. Brokeback Mountain is a wonderful representation of what it means to struggle not only with romance, but I think it also brings to mind the great struggle that American audiences have with fully accepting the fact that gay people they've helped shape the world that we are living in. Their love runs as deep as any other type of people in the world. There is one of the great sins of the Western genre is that it fails to recognize the people who built America and only represents primarily the white people who took all of the credit for America getting made. But no, I think that one of the things that I wanted to do with this whole saga is I wanted people to be able to read a series and be able to say, I see me here, right? It was one of the transformative actions that Marvel Comics did in the 1950s, in the 1960s, when they started including characters who were not simply white heroes. People find a great sense of power, a great sense of belonging when they see themselves in the fiction that they read. And not only Baroness, but also all of the saga represents gay communities who have been criminally underrepresented in not only the genre, but in literature abroad.
I think that was beautifully said, but I do think history will still remember Larry and Sven as roommates. In the book you write, the man doesn't choose the love chooses him. And this seems to imply that you're part of this homosexual agenda. Explain.
Well, you've unmasked me. Here on the Fermented Fiction podcast, I have to admit that I am a part of Big Gay. I'm a part of the lobby trying to get across the homosexual agenda. The man doesn't choose the love chooses the man. I think that is one of the most true things I've ever been able to put on a page. I firmly believe that love is the fire inside the hearth of the soul that gives warmth and light to every other divine virtue. It's magic, real magic. And I think that and as a person who I openly admit and have talked about this before, as a person who was born into a culture of homophobic, xenophobic, and racist culture, that one can't truly experience that world until love finds them. And love means, as Stanley Hauerwas says, joy. Love means I'm glad you're here. And if you can't be excited about the fact and overjoyed at the fact that there are people in the world who are not like you, then you have missed the point of the world entirely.
All right, Seth. Well, I think we do have to go to our break, but my final question, do you have anything else to say for yourself?
Only that I do not apologize for my position in the Big Gay agenda.
Okay.
Nice callback.
Fantastic answer, Seth, and fantastic trolling of our usual format, Ray. That
Give
was
Ray a hand.
wonderful.
Incredible work.
Wonderful. Pause for applause. Great. We are going to go on a quick break, 5 to 10 minutes. I don't know, Clay, is it 5 or 10? You said 10, I think, in the email.
Yeah, we could do 5. I think that's good.
5-minute break for everybody to refill their drinks and do whatever else they need to do. Viewers who are on YouTube Live, please do the same, but do not click off. Okay, we see you there, and we want you to stay on. And our guests, you are welcome to leave if you have other things to do tonight, but we would love to have you back on for that roundtable discussion, that open discussion. But it is completely up to you. No judgment if you are not back in 5. Everybody else, we'll see you here in 5.
We're the first ones back.
Oh my goodness. I suppose that's right. We could derail the entire show if we wanted to.
The world is our oyster.
Please
I'm
don't.
still hanging in here.
Hey now. Hey, this is our oyster. Go away.
CS, I want to read to you the Aristotle quote that you're right next to in my quote book, if you'll permit me, and
Ready?
people on YouTube Live. The worst person, because I do think it really applies to what you just said. The worst person, therefore, is the one who exercises his vice towards himself and his friends as well as towards others.
Yes.
And the best person is not the one who exercises virtue only toward himself, but the one who also exercises it in relation to another, since this is the difficult task. So,
Yeah.
I think you really emulated that in your answers to Rae. And welcome back, everybody, with that Aristotle quote. And I promised he's in my book. I don't lie.
I'm in the book.
He's in the book. I don't know.
Could I counter that with my favorite G.K. Chesterton quote?
Oh, you please. Anytime Chesterton's quoted, I'm happy.
Okay. Chesterton once wrote, a long time ago in the 1800s, he said, "Poets have been mysteriously silent on the subject of cheese." And that's a real quote.
Yeah, the
And it's
cheese
wonderful.
essay is hysterical. I did a seminar on the cheese essay this summer, and there was one guy in the group that we would get like far away into the philosophical realm, and he would always be like, okay, but what about the cheese, man?
Right. He'd be like, George Bernard Shaw, I hear you about what is the word? It's I can't remember. It's I can't remember what it is. But he and George Bernard Shaw used to go back and forth at each other in the morning and evening newspapers. And he's like, I really can't stand George Bernard Shaw. And then he wrote, I think he wrote, it was many people oftentimes get it mistaken, the difference between tragedy and catastrophe. And he goes, it would be a tragedy if George Bernard Shaw walked into the ocean. It would be a catastrophe if someone were to pull him out.
Maybe my second favorite literary rivalry in all of history, second only to William Faulkner and
Ernest Hemingway.
Where Faulkner said, a reporter reportedly asked him, what do you think about Hemingway's suicide? And Faulkner apparently replied, he probably did it because he never wrote a good book in his life. So that one got spicy. If anyone wants to look into it, it's pretty volatile. Welcome back.
I have to throw this in there. I'm going to interject. I'm going to be an asshole.
Please do.
Mark Twain once wrote of Jane Austen. He said, if I could, I would dig her up and hit her in the head with her own shin bone. She died because he hated her work so much.
Man, I just finished Pride and Prejudice and I loved it. I don't know what you're talking about, Mark. Anyway, welcome back, people, with that little short, brief history of literary rivalries. People have been hating each other since the dawn of time. It's the truth. And this is a perfect segue to my first question. We are now in the open table segment where we are going to talk about C.S. Hempel's fantastic book, Baroness of the Eastern Seaboard, and really just generally about your whole 6-book saga, because I have questions that apply to all of it. I haven't read all of it. I will be very transparent there.
Sure.
But I do have the first.
Me either.
Right behind me. And so we're talking about these literary rivalries. We're talking about this history of authors, of characters. And I think that's something that any good author, I mean, I don't remember who it was that said to be a good writer, you need to read. But Stephen King, that is definitely something that I have found very true. The best authors are the ones who have a library in their heads that they're pulling from, whether or not they're subverting the tropes that they're pulling from or they're playing into the tropes. And so that's kind of my first question. I think you show that knowledge of history very much in your names. And I want you to talk both about the knowledge of history and about the naming process you go through, because that is definitely a consistent compliment you get on Goodreads, is that you have really good character names. And I was immediately struck in your first novel by Ptolemy, because I was like, is he talking about the Greek mathematician, or is he talking about the Macedonian best friend of Alexander the Great? So first, answer that question for me. And second, if you could dive into kind of like, how do you name characters? How do you pull in these themes from past things? And then I want to open that to the field of writers we have, because, wow, look at what we have here. We have Josh Rountree, we have Rae Wilde, we have Clay, we have Collin, we have Jeremy. They're all writers. We have Becca, who's just a voracious reader and has Attack of the 50-Foot Woman behind her, which is amazing. Also, probably going to get remade, starring Margot Robbie. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's coming. So yeah, that's my open question: is like, how do you name characters as a writer? And beyond that, when you're pulling things in from this vast library of literature, history, and just history in general, how do you keep that fresh and new for your books while also paying tribute to the things that you're borrowing from?
Well, when it comes to names, I ascribe to the J.R.R. Tolkien method of, if it sounds good, it's probably great, right? So the phonesthetic quality of a name means a lot, right? And so whenever a character shows up on the page, so I'll give you this. With Gilbert Ptolemy, that was based upon a lot of my undergrad work was spent focused on the Macedonian conquest of Persia by Alexander the Great against the, of course you did, against the Persian Empire led by Darius. And I also folded a little bit of that into the narrative, because some of the times people who would buy human beings in the abysmal slave trade that the country was undertaking at the time, they thought themselves sort of counterfeit European aristocracy. So they thought they'd be very intelligent by saying, I'll call this one Ptolemy. And I think one of the most horrific things that can happen to a person is for them to lose their name. Pulling from Genesis, one of the most important things that Adam is given sort of custodialship over is that he is meant to give every animal its name, making him the first zoologist in that mythology, which is a little bit of fun, which is a fun piece of trivia, right? But if the name sounds great, then the reader will remember it, right? Gilbert Ptolemy, they call him Ptolemy. And the reason I use Ptolemy is because you don't ever see that name in a book. You'll remember the character, but the name doesn't make the character makes the name memorable, right? And so, Carson is just sort of a generic name. Annie Miller was meant to be this idea of, just she could have been anyone. And that is important, because the Miller family is meant to be a stand-in for anyone. Anyone could have grown up in West Texas as a part of a impoverished lifestyle, right? And I think a lot of American culture, especially in the flyover states, they see themselves as this sort of grassroots, impoverished society that is only known for its hard work. And so I was like, hey, Miller sounds like a great name for those people, right? But in terms of things like Clara May, I'm not going to tell you why that name is Clara May, but it is an important reason why it's Clara May. Okay, fuck it, I'll tell you. So my favorite character in Lonesome Dove is Claire, who is the great love of Augustus McCrae's life, right? And so I wanted there to be someone that the Baroness was pursuing in the same way that Augustus pursued Claire. Why is that important? Gus never really wanted to be with Claire. Gus loved the idea of Claire, right? He hated that within himself he let a woman get away, right? And so Clara May is built off of that. The Baroness, her name, when I was writing Red Wind in the West, I was like, what sounds like a badass title you wouldn't normally give to a person? Probably a Baroness in America, right? That's pretty cool, right? Naming characters, and I say this with all sincerity, it's going to sound hyperbolic. The name matters.
Yep.
Right? Names matter, right? Yep. Roland Deschain matters. Yep. Like that name, like when you call him Arthur Eld, right? In the Dark Tower, to pull from some of the comps of the book, the names matter. Oliver Maine, I just love the way that rolls off the tongue. That's just a fun one, right? You throw in a sort of antiquated name with a state and people are like, hell yeah, brother. Cleveland, Texas, that's a pretty cool name, right? Cincinnati, Ohio, pretty cool, right? So that's all behind the name. But I've always had a deep vested love in history. And I think that the richness of history, especially when writers get the opportunity to write about the American West, they have an opportunity to tell the true history of it, which is why in my books, you won't hear it called the Civil War. You'll hear it called the Slavers' Revolt, because that's what it is, right? And I'm not trying to take Lincoln's argument that's like, I'm not saying these states are in rebellion. I'm just saying it's people inside these states who are in rebellion. I'm not trying to get that sort of level of cop-out. But I do think that it's more appropriate to call it a Slavers' Revolt. I do think that that's what the South was. And at any opportunity I'm ever going to have inside of a novel to blow their fucking brains out, I'm going to absolutely do that. So I have a deep appreciation for history and the rectification of history, not in the revisionist sense, but in the actual truth telling of the recitation of the American history.
We're definitely going to get that with a lot of comments were made about the Baroness's train, and I have a question about said train, but we're going to...
Perfect.
I want to remind our guests who are either new or veteran to this show, if you have something to say, please raise your hand. If not, I might just randomly call on you because you're all writers and influencers who are much more knowledgeable than I am. But on that level, we have 2 hands raised right away. Clay, start us off.
Yeah, I like what you say, Seth, about names being power, right? And there's entire books, there's entire religions written on that kind of thing. But like that in this book is demonstrable. And I think you do a good job of utilizing that. So I think that there's 2 parts of it too as a writer, right? Like there's the part you're talking about where it doesn't roll off the tongue. Is it phonetically like pleasurable? Is it phonetically functional? You don't want to have 3 people in your book named RRR, Ricky, Ray, and Ryan or some shit like that, right? You want to make sure people are distinguishable. You want to make sure people are memorable. But also like you bring up a really good point with the slave name thing, and that goes back in all cultures too. I mean, even the name Miller, that comes from the same kind of thing. I mean, that came from back in the day where they would roll into little villages and they would be like, "Hey, y'all are coming to war with me. That's just the way it's gonna be. What's your last name?" And they're all like, "My name's fucking Joe. I don't know. I don't know what you want.
What's your occupation, brother?"
Yeah. And they're like,
Mhm.
"Okay, well, what's your dad do?" Miller, Fletcher, fucking like that's where you get these kind of
Smith.
names. And yeah, Smith, all those things, right? Yeah, Taylor, whatever. Like those are all those names, they come from that kind of thing. That assignment, that wielding of power from an aristocracy on the lower class that just like assigns it. And those things have echoed through eternity. Now we have people named Miller like centuries later. And it's become a part of those people's identity too. It's become a source of pride even. So it's a cool way that you can take that thing that came from oppression and you could turn it into something good. You can turn it into something meaningful. By the way that you live your life and the way your legacy echoes throughout time and history. So I think that's a really fun way to explore the importance of names as well. And I think you do that in this book well. So I just wanted to chip in with that.
Before I call on Jeremy, to that point, I just finished the Canterbury Tales, and I have to know, Peregrine, what's the society based on? Is it from the Squire Tale, or am I reading way too much into that?
So the Peregrine Estate, you're going to be really disappointed. You tried to really pull in Chaucer, and about 23 years ago, I was sitting inside the house I was living in Abilene, Texas, while I was a student at Hardin-Simmons University. And my first writing mentor and friend, Brad Ellison, decided we were all going to...
Interesting.
Yeah. So Hezekiah Ellison, the judge, is based off of my dear friend Brad. And we all decided we were going to play a tabletop role-playing game. And it was a Victorian... the setting was in spooky Victorian England, and he called it the group that we were all going to be working for was called the Peregrines Templar. And so what I did as a sort of love letter to Brad, who again, my very first writing mentor that I ever had, one of the foundational pieces of the person I've grown into, I decided that I was going to make him both the creator of that group and a facsimile, like not totally a one-for-one of Brad, but with many of his wonderful virtues. But the Peregrine Estate comes from playing this role-playing game 23 years ago with Brad and a group of friends. And instead of Peregrine Templar, I made it an estate because I needed him to have a parcel of land in Texas.
Well, I'm going to have my headcanon be that Brad pulled that from Chaucer.
It wouldn't surprise me. Brad is a deep love, especially of the Parsoner's Tale from Canterbury Tales.
Nice. I love it. Jeremy, what you got?
Well, I mean, the first thing, and I wasn't intending for this to be the first thing, but, as the wonderful Dan Bull once said, "There's little more gory a thing than living in Victorian England," naturally. So wonderful. But when it comes to like naming, most of the time, and I don't know if it's this way for everybody, but it's often vibes. Like the best example I can think of for myself is when I was, in film school writing a story about vampires. And when you're trying to name Draculas, you try to think of old school names. I went with Dominic, but I wanted one Dracula, one vampire to be kind of like a dumb younger guy. So I named him Jake, the most
Jake the
unvampire
Vampire.
name that I could think of. And that served that story well right up until it was made. Student films are quite the thing to have made. But story details are also great to use. I will point to, of course, Douglas Adams, because obviously I'm going to, when he named Ford Prefect after just a model of car that he knew. And the implication is that he assumed that cars were the dominant life form on Earth when he arrived there, and so named himself thusly. When vibes fail, that's when I start using Google Translate or stealing from historical or literary figures.
Sure.
Because, if there's a shortcut to tell you what a character's about, you should maybe just take that.
Yeah.
Maybe just take that. And then people who care to Google it will get there. And they'll think you're really smart, when in fact, I am quite dumb.
I think that's a great comment. And I want to go back to CS's first reference here to Tolkien. There's a really funny meme. I don't know who wrote it, so I can't quote who it's from, but it's like Tolkien naming characters, and it's like, why is this person named Galadriel? And it's this whole explanation of the Elvish name. It's like, well, what about this character? Oh, that's Treebeard, because he has a beard and he's a tree.
He is
Like,
in fact a tree.
There's vibes and then there's depth to it. Clay, before I get to you, I do want to field this question of Becca from the sort of like book talk side, because I think that's a really valuable conversation that's happening. Is I've often felt that subconsciously we do gravitate towards these things where we recognize, even if we don't fully recognize, that the author has a depth of history they're pulling from. And I don't think maybe the common reader doesn't exactly know why those are the stories they gravitate towards, but they do. And I want to know if I'm completely stupid on that, or if you think that is definitely something that, like, as a book reviewer, you're gravitating towards the stories that are pulling from this depth of knowledge of reading, and not just the people who are, the extreme example is those who are just having AI write their books now, which I hope that never happens with anyone on this panel. But yeah, if you could comment on that, of like, as a book reviewer, are you naturally kind of gravitate towards these people that you do recognize have a deep history in literature?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I'm gonna put it out there. The last history class I took was in high school, so it's been a while since I'm not as familiar with history as I would like to be. I mean, kind of going back to names having meaning, I think I'll gravitate. I personally, for me, like I don't really pay much attention to if the name is like. I mean, I'm attracted to books with both like modern day names and also names that are unique or maybe based somewhere in history. But I think it definitely adds more to the book itself, because I mean, with like the Amidst Vastness saga, like we come up with characters who have, I mean, as we were just talking about their names, like those are deep in history and something that I maybe would see. I'm assuming I don't know much about the Wild West, but if I was there, those are names that I think might come up, and it kind of makes you feel like you're in the story more. It makes you more immersed in it, and I do think there are a lot of people out there who really gravitate towards certain names, certain styles. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head of like, it depends on who you are as the reader. But Clay, what do you got? and then Collin.
He's muted. We need to unmute him.
Yes, thank you. See, yes, humble. I do that all the time. We're gonna make it a shirt because it's a whole thing. Two things just based on what's been said so far on the whole panel. First of all, I think if you choose a name that has historical relevance, people will attach meaning regardless. So I think you have to be intentional to a degree and cautious to a degree, but also like you can do what you want. It's your story, but just know that if you are a writer out there and you are going to choose to name a character Ptolemy, like people are going to be, was it this Ptolemy? Was it that Ptolemy? Why did you choose that Ptolemy? Like, yes, if they know who Ptolemy is, they will be like, what does C.S. Humble think about Alexander the Great? And they will immediately kind of like draw those comparisons, right, to Ptolemy in this story, Ptolemy in his story in history, right? And the other thing is, Jeremy, you bring up a really good point regarding naming a vampire Jake, because I think it's really cool how names have so much power, right? Because they are so much of what a character is. They are so much of what we remember. They are so much of what stands out to us. Naming somebody Jake can have as much power as naming someone Ptolemy. It's all about context. And I think that's a really cool thing to remember too, right? It's all about, like Sarah, right? Like you said, CS, like Sarah is one of the coolest fucking characters in the series. I've read book 1 and book 6. I love Sarah. She's my girl. Like, I didn't see her in Baroness, so I'm a little concerned. But I don't know where she goes in the saga, but like somewhere she didn't show up in book 6. Anyway, I really do find that fascinating, though, how it's all about context. It's all about how you use the name. And that was something I wanted to ask Josh about, actually, because Josh, you title a lot of your books directly after your character names. So I'm interested to know how much thought, what is your process of naming characters? I know you're got a hand up, Collin, but I want to hear from Josh here on this, just because like The Legend of Charlie Fish is your first novel, and then you've got The Unkillable Frank Lightning. Those are both really interesting names. Like Charlie Fish, that's like a name I could see myself hearing in real life. Frank Lightning, not so much. Like Frank, yes, but Frank Lightning, damn. If that's your name, like good for you. Like what peasant?
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, brother.
So what's your process, Josh? And then we can kick it to Collin after that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I ended up having 2 books with a character name in the title. And spoiler alert, I have an unpublished novella I just finished that also has a character name in the title. So I think that I need to re-examine what's going on with that. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a character names or vibes kind of guy. The Charlie Fish character is literally a fish man. So it's very straightforward. And the Frank Lightning character is literally my stand-in in that for Frankenstein's monster. So in both cases, it's real on the nose. And in the case of Charlie Fish, it's a little girl actually gave him that name. So that's kind of the explanation of why he has such a simplistic name. In Frank Lightning, it's really more just to tip the reader at a certain point that, oh, this is kind of what's going on with this. But in both cases, I think they, my hope is that the characters kind of overcome that name, and it's sort of like the step into it, and then you see, oh wait, they're quite different than what you think those character names are going to lead you to believe they are. Just as far as the general naming conventions for the rest of them, I typically, when I'm doing that Western stuff, I'm looking for names that'd be appropriate to the period. I have a character, a little girl named Nellie, and that's literally me trying to take back Nellie Olson, take back the Nellie name from, the hated Nellie Olson from Little House on the Prairie. Yeah. So, I kind of hate coming up with names, but I try and find something that I think is going to sound good or serve the story in that way. I'm writing actually a sword and sorcery thing right now, like a kind of a bloody sword and sorcery thing, so really different for me. And God, I hate making up names for that, because at least in my other stuff, I can kind of pull things from the real world that I like and sound good. And in this case, I have to be, you have to come at it from a different angle. And I really want to be cognizant that they all, we're not just going to have those names internalized. So they all have to really fit a character a certain way. And it makes me think of when I first read The Fellowship of the Ring, really the whole saga. I was kind of too young to read it. I think I read that in like the first grade. So I sort of got it here, got it there. Yeah, I was. I can't add or do algebra, but I was a very precocious reader. But I read it way too young, and so I didn't really get it. But I knew it was something cool that I wanted to, and so I really understood the book when I read it later. But what I recall tripping me up so bad when I was a kid was Sauron and Saruman. And I never want to ever make that
That is
sort of
so tough.
I don't want to call it a mistake, but it's a mistake. Like they really should have. It should have.
Easy, brother.
So
I'm just gonna agree.
I realized that I'm sure there's like 700 pages of notes that Tolkien had on the backstory of those names and how they fit into the saga and and I say this with a house where my 21-year-old son can like quote the Silmarillion. So like I'm not knocking on Tolkien here, but when I was a kid, Sauron and Saruman, that was like I kept going, how is he here and now I eventually got it right. So I there's that aspect too. You want to make sure that you're not doing anything that's going to confuse the situation like that.
Don't worry, Christopher will publish a book called The Names of Tolkien in the next 2 years, probably. But
yeah, totally.
We'll all fucking buy it, Travis.
I'll buy it. I'll buy it. I do think
I won't.
Everybody here has talked to kind of I think what is the beauty, and Collin, Rae, Jeremy, I see you all. I think the beauty of the name thing harkens back to some of our earliest literature of like the Iliad, the Odyssey, Homer. Like the names did mean something of like Odysseus is called the sly one, like the trickster. And there's always something ascribed to the name of Odysseus. And I think you talked to that, Josh, of like, you can use that in multiple ways. If you can either have them play into that, or you can give them the name and then have the whole story counteract what people expect from that name. And I love that you did that. That's beautiful. But Collin, what do you got?
There is an interesting fact about Westerns that I learned from talking to another Western writer. First of all, I need to have some of this speakeasy Kentucky burner.
All right, let's just all have a little sip
Yeah,
together.
Yeah, it's that time again.
Just get in on that. Yeah.
Cheers.
So Cascade Writers has had Anne Gilman at a bunch of our events several times, and Anne Gilman is a writer of Westerns and a whole bunch of other things too. But she was telling me
the Half-Made World.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the Half-Made World. Incredible mixture of fantasy, weird Western, great novel.
So she was saying how to like touching on something that like Travis you might not know about that is a huge influencing factor on just publication is that what she said, which I'd love to get Becca and Mr. Humble's opinion on, would be that like if you want to write a Western book, you have to do it. If there's gunslingers, it has to be set between 1865 and 1890, and those are the rules. And that has to do with a bunch of stuff that I'm not aware of, but like the guns that are around and the fact that they are Native Americans who are and aren't on reservations, grizzled veterans of the Civil War, especially, of the South who are now part of the military in some aspects. Like there's a whole bunch of factors. And I listened to her talk about this and I was like, well, I'm not going to write a Western. I don't want to learn all that shit. I'm definitely going to be like, and he pulled out a 7-shooter because it was cool as hell, and like everyone would be upset and that would have to get cut. So yeah, I am curious about if that's true.
That is absolutely fascinating. I want to hold that for a second. We'll make it the next question because I thank you, Collin. Because in the film industry, that has bothered me to no end of like, the people will say like, I literally read a review that said Eddington is the first modern Western. And I was like, Hell or High Water, Wind River. Like, what the hell? Where are you guys at? Anyway, we'll talk
No
about
Country.
but No Country for Old Men. Rae Knowles, you've had your hand up for a bit, so I want to the first question on names and kind of that history of literature. What do you got?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think there's also genre expectations around names. And I don't think that's something we think about a whole lot, but I think the kind of pulpier the genre, the more in your face names can be, and the more I think there's an expectation that they tell you about the character. So, think like if I'm pick up an erotica book and his name is Gregory Hugecock, like I have
Writing that
right?
one down.
Like, and
Go ahead.
So Superman, right? It better be fucking super, right? Like you can't call him kind of good sometimes, man. That doesn't make for a compelling superhero. So I think kind of the pulpier you get in terms of genre, the more those names, especially for your main characters, have weight in the eyes of a reader and can inform, their expectations. But the other thing I wanted to comment on was we talk a lot about vibes for names, and I tend to name characters based on vibes, but I think when we say vibes, we're also sort of like, well, what gives the name a vibe? It is a history, just one that I don't know about specifically, right? So like when you think about the name Skip, Rutherford, those are ultra wealthy names. They only exist in a very small group of people, and that's going to suggest wealth. In the same way that some of these more like historical names, even if I don't know the reference, I go, ooh, that has sort of like an old-timey vibe, and it informs my expectation about the character. In the same way where like if you have a vampire called Ed, I'm gonna go, this is probably kind of like a comic relief character because that's so unexpected from the name.
Right.
So, even if we don't know like what time periods this name was super popular or where in the world it was or what socioeconomic class, that's where those vibes come from.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I want to ask kind of two expanding questions on your comment, Rae, and see what you say of like, I think you're 100% right about the name tells us something about like a predisposition we have. Because I was just watching The Life of Chuck with my friend Ryan, and one of the actors, and I can't remember his name to this day, but he played Shaggy in the live action Scooby-Doo. And you're like, Shaggy, you understand, you get like Shaggy is Shaggy, and like that's just a vibe you get from that name.
That's Matthew Lillard.
Matthew Lillard. Thank you. I completely forgot.
Who is a fucking dog.
Yeah,
great actor.
But yeah, I almost completely forgot the second question, which is also a staple of the Fermented Fiction podcast, is me forgetting my question.
Couldn't
So,
be better.
Rae, could you further maybe dig in on that? Like, I think the personality that is given by the almost like the descriptors that come with the name, is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah. So I think like if the genre you're writing in is sort of an in-your-face, loud genre, you can get away with super in-your-face names too, right? That tell us a whole lot about the character. And I think when you get into more, literary, historical, or, just genre that's not like 70s pulp or superhero or erotica, that has to be dialed back a bit. It would be weird if Seth wrote a character called Gregory Hugecock. We would probably have questions about that. But it feels at home in an erotica novel. Right? Joey Tentacles, for example.
Josh, take that down. Take a note.
Yeah, totally. Definitely.
Is that the name of the novella coming out?
Yeah.
No, but it is now.
Joey Tentacles.
It is now, brother.
I can only imagine Joey Tentacles is sort of like an alien erotica that's somehow mob based. It's also
hey, you guys don't messing with Joey Tentacles, right. all right. And there's Bobby Hard Clamps. He comes down on everybody, right?
A mafia alien romance. It'll sell 1 million copies.
Yeah, totally,
absolutely.
One to me at minimum.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a level too to where the name makes the person. Like I think I don't know. That's like a chicken and the egg conversation that we can maybe have later.
Oh, it definitely affects it. Like when you start, like you're figuring those characters out as you're writing, and I can definitely say that whatever I've named them, they start to grow into that name, or at the very least, it affects kind of how I'm approaching that character.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, even historically, like when I hear the word Teddy, I think of two things: a teddy bear, which is like this, or Teddy Roosevelt, which is the exact opposite. And that person just became the nickname that he became, and that's something that's like I think we do in fiction all the time. Of the name maybe came first, but then the personality of the character creates what the name is going to be for future reference. Just like Ptolemy, when I saw Ptolemy, it's like, oh, I know that Ptolemy, but a person who doesn't know the history might be like, ooh, that's an interesting name. Like,
you say the P in that name? Is that Ptolemy? What is that? Right?
Exactly. Jeremy, you've had your hand up for
Ptolemy.
Well, you say I have had my hand up for some time, so much time, in fact, that the point I was intending to make did actually somehow become relevant. And that's incredible. I wasn't expecting that to happen when I, took the note and decided to make this my point and the thing I would say before I die on this podcast. But I will say this is one of the ways realism can harm a story, because in real life, names can and sometimes are very over the top. Case in point, I happen to have gone to high school with someone with a very unique and unexpected name.
Gregory Hugecock.
You would think. First name, Fish. Last name, also Fish. Middle name, Wolfrobe.
Wolfrobe. Okay.
Tell me you were raised by hippies without telling me you were raised by hippies.
His parents hated him.
No. I was raised in Montana, near-ish to the Blackfeet Reservation. That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying without saying until the point where I said it.
Tremendous.
Right up until then, it went without saying.
Fair. That actually segues perfectly into my second
Thank
question.
you. I do my best.
Yeah, you do your best. For the panel, and this is more about setting and specific details of the setting, because CS, everyone talked about this train. Actually, these two trains, because Rae brought up the erotica train from the earlier novels. And I'm going to be very honest, like, I didn't take this in any joking way, and I want to be very serious here. Of like, when I think of trains in the Old West, what comes to mind is the most harrowing photograph I've probably ever seen.
Yeah.
Maybe second only to photographs of the Holocaust. But if anyone knows it, it's a picture of a guy standing on top of kind of a train trestle, and he's in the background is a mountain, literally, of buffalo skulls, which was the prominent food source for the Native American people. And some people have come out and said, like, that's completely fake. It didn't happen. It did happen. Like, that was, we attacked the food source. And that was 100% how the European settlers tried to attack the tribes people of that day. And that's what came up with me with the train, is you're trying to paint for the audience of your books this like evil Baroness, and you use this form of transportation that is 100% brought by the European settlers, and tied into that is all this historical context. So all of that to say, like, the setting of your Western seems very intentional.
Yes.
Seems very hard to balance. And not be revisionist too far, but also not be like Rae brought up in your debate, quote unquote, not too far to the other side. And I'm just that balance. How did you balance it? And from the rest of the panel, like when you're picking your settings for your books, how hard is that to walk into? And as a reader, to like myself and Becca, who are not writers, but readers, what are we looking for in those settings?
So the photograph you're talking about is commented on by one of the great current American naturalists and conservators of wildlife in the United States today, Stephen Ranella. And so atop this pile of bones, there is a man standing atop them, right? And Stephen Ranella writes, "This is the great exclamation point to end the sentence of all European colonialism." Like, this is what, and to quote James Baldwin, he says, "This is the world that white men have made, that they are panic stricken by the world that they have made," right? I have tried, so I appreciate you saying this, Travis. It is difficult to write the West in a way that is that both has historical veracity, but also has a level of the justice that the Old West didn't have. And a lot of writers who are much better than I am, especially historians, who say the Old West wasn't even the Old West, or the Wild West wasn't even the Old West. That world didn't exist. And so I think when we jump into and decide, I want to write a Western, well, one of the great contributions to the novel, to the American novel, are many writers who've come before me. Larry McMurtry. You have Cormac McCarthy's novel, which is probably the Moby Dick of the Western, if not the modern Moby Dick. In many ways, intentionally, like, we can all agree, like, let me be very clear. Cormac McCarthy was a grooming piece of shit who should not be celebrated for his life, but certainly his literature has a great amount of influence in the current landscape of literature. Or deservedly so, at the expense of a woman's story that was only told inside of a poorly written novel, or a poorly written editorial inside of, I think it was Esquire magazine. So I have to say all of those things to say, every single writer, Josh included, who I believe, Josh, and I'm going to say this, I've said this before, Josh is currently the best Western writer working in the world today. Best pure Western writer that there is. I've said that to Joe Lansdale, who is the current champion of the Western genre for everyone. Joe is in many ways the progenitor of the modern weird Western. Louis L'Amour's The Black Mound being probably the very first. But all of those things said to say, every person who writes a Western stands atop both the shoulders and the failures of the Western writers who have come before them. Predominantly, these are white men who have written a particular type of story, except for Annie Proulx, specifically her novel, That Old Ace in the Hole, which Annie Proulx doesn't get the sort of the acclaim as other writers that she should. She's also the writer of Brokeback Mountain, which Larry McMurtry helped facilitating the turning in of a screenplay. So why do I say all that? I say all of that to say the Western is a troubled genre. And if you're going to go into it, you'd better be ready to field the slings and arrows that come with the responsibilities of writing in it. I made a mistake in the very first novel that I wrote, The Massacre of Yellow Hill. I made the mistake of including historically accurate language that white people use toward Black folks. I made that mistake. And that's why in the 2018, with the republishing of the novel, I said, listen, I made a mistake. This isn't to excuse the mistake. This is simply me taking the responsibility that those words have been removed for the sake of the people whom those words harm, right? I was a perfect representation of what not to do when you are writing a Western. And because people loved me, because people were willing to challenge me on those positions, I changed my position, right? So when we talk about writing in these historically tenuous genres, be ready to take responsibility, be ready to do the research, be ready to field questions of people who say, gunslingers didn't exist until 1865, brother. They weren't around. Did you know the single action army Colt wasn't even available until 1864? The lever action, like, did you even know that? You got those people too, right? But more importantly, the truth of the time is not relative to the truth that has been told about the genre. Larry McMurtry's Lonesome Dove is the single greatest Western genre or Western novel ever written. and I'll stand on that hill until you fill me with spears. Like, I will.
Mm-hmm.
Is it historically representative of the time that it is talking about? Semi, sort of, kinda,
Yeah.
right? But the historicity of the thing has to meet a certain veracity so that your audience can both embrace the difficulties of the time you're writing about, but also embrace some of the romantic tropes that so many of us love to fall in love with.
Yeah.
Right. And everyone who introduces themselves into any setting, and I would say specifically the Western, you better be ready to do your fucking research, because they'll say, hey man, there were other voices. And when I heard that there were other voices, I had to say, will I give a voice to those voices? And that changing of the focal point of these novels, that mattered. And I think it matters more and more every day. The more and more that I write, I would say, which is a long way of saying, yes, you should take the genres you're writing in very seriously.
This question about the train has evolved into a deeper question, which I knew it would. And I want to put it towards Josh and Becca, and then whoever else wants to take it. But Josh is a writer, Becca is a consumer. When you're thinking about the Western genre and you're trying to write in it, or you're thinking about, am I interested in reading it? Because I think that's a very, very profound question of like, am I actually interested in seeing this on shelves? Because I've seen it come back in television in a weird way, especially on Paramount Plus. I mean, we see that the writer of Wind River and Hell or High Water, great movies. I don't love his TV shows, but like Yellowstone, Landman, all of those have kind of exploded. So the Western genre is coming back in full force in a certain way.
Right.
And I'm just very curious to hear from both a writer of the genre and a consumer of the genre. Are you seeing that people are ready to consume Westerns, maybe combined with other subgenres? Or do you think people are more looking for the subgenre first before the Western?
Becca,
either one of you.
I can go first, unless you want to, Josh.
Go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I will admit, before getting into the saga, I didn't know if I was really interested in Westerns. I'd watched like a few TV shows and nothing was really calling my name. But I think specifically something about this saga, which really made me start loving it and staying with it, is the inclusion of different voices. Because I think beforehand, there's a lot of like one perspective kind of showing, especially in like older Western or like historical books. There tends to be mostly just like a white man, which isn't like a bad thing. That's fine, especially in that time. But it was really incredible to be able to see, though, that there were other people that existed, other people living their lives, and how that inclusion is so important. And I think, on like social media as well, just from that perspective, a lot of people want to read diverse novels, and like everyone can read what they want to read, but I think it's really important to include other voices in it, include other perspectives, especially in that time period. I think it just widens the market of people who would be interested in it. And also I just find it, I find like I have a new sense of what Western horror is. And in terms of, are we looking at like the subgenre or something else? I think, it's subjective. People view different things. But I don't really, I wasn't interested in Western before this, but I was interested in horror. So that's kind of what drew me in. I really love cosmic horror. But I think, it's different for both people. But yeah, this was just a really great introduction to Western. Really, like someone who doesn't know anything about it was able to jump in, and it was really accessible.
And Josh, before you jumped in, I definitely want to get to you, but I do want to do my due diligence to Paramount. They also made the Lawman Bass Reeves, so that's a little bit more of a representation of different voices in that Western genre. I don't want to ignore that. So I just want to make sure I say that. But Josh, you definitely have comments, and then Clay.
Yeah, I deeply love Westerns. I mean, I will read a Western over almost any other genre, and I read in a lot of genres, but I grew up reading them, watching the movies. You know, I read the Louis L'Amour books when I was a kid and kind of worked my way through everything else. And so, despite their flaws and everything that we've talked about here, you know, it's a genre that you know, I've always kind of held close to my heart, and a lot of it is bullshit. You know, that's the thing, and
Right.
that was that was a key part of what I was trying to get at in my book, The Unkillable Frank Lightning, which is basically the reason he has that weird name is because it's his stage name in the Wild West show. And then the Wild West shows basically started in the late 1800s and ran well into the 20th century. And they were basically, it was sort of the way to create and sell the myth of the West to people maybe back east who never really lived it. People who kind of wanted to feel that adventure, but not really understand what was happening and, you know, and how awful everything really was in that time period. And you know, within that time, you basically had, you know, people like Buffalo Bill and others creating tall tales and performing them. You know, they would hire Native Americans to reenact famous battles. They would have, you know, cavalry riding around, sharpshooters, the whole thing. And it became sort of, you know, it informed what we think of as the Old West today. You know, there's crossover between those shows and vaudeville and the movies. And so when we think of early Hollywood and Hollywood today and the cowboy and how, you know, Seth talked about, you know, men love being men, that all goes back to that in an American sense is, you know, what we were taught the Old West was and how America is supposed to be. And I kind of wanted to take some pot shots at that. And so, you know, I have a character, Catherine Colbridge, and she is a doctor and she is an occultist, and she is sort of bearing witness to these shows in her time and recognizing them kind of for the bullshit that they are. And they, you know, she sort of lived the Old West and she's kind of seeing this recreation and it really sort of sickens her. And so it's you know, it's something that I think it's important to point out to people because, you know, the people who tend to say, oh, I don't really like Westerns. I get it. You know, a lot of that is because, well, everything I've seen is, you know, a guy in a white hat rides into town and, you know, he goes and kills a bunch of Comanche and he's the hero. Right. So, but I think when you kind of dig deeper and you find some of the stories that aren't so cut and dry and that sort of ask questions about the time period and you know, not just celebrate it, that's when you really find the good stuff.
Yeah. And I think Hell or High Water is a great example of that as a cinema thing. I had a friend literally ask me, like, do you really think there's a hero in this? And I was like, yeah, I think one of the brothers is a hero, but he's very morally gray, you know. But Clayton, you had your hand up. I don't know if you lowered it on purpose. And then Jeremy and then Rae.
I lowered it because you had already called on me. Yes, but I would still like to say this saga is a good example of giving voices to the voices that have previously been unheard, in that the West, I think you make a great point, Seth, and you've made this at a couple panels I've seen you on, a couple different conventions, about not going lightly to the page, respecting the true history. And because it's true, we celebrate Carnegie and we celebrate these rich historical figures who I think more than ever in these times that we live in now, we can see like the bullshit that it is of like how much a CEO affects the everyday functioning of a company, right? And how much like the people who actually work in the field, the people who actually laid the railroad tracks, should be given their due credit for that railroad becoming BNF, right? And that is like that is to forget the land and the nations and the people that the railroad was laid upon. And that is all so often forgotten. So I think that when you write in a genre like the Western, any genre really, but I mean, you cannot go lightly to the page, as I've heard you say so often, Seth. And I think you demonstrate that in this saga. So just to bring it back to Baroness a little bit, but if you're going to write in a genre like the Western and you're going to give somebody their own fucking train, let's remember that this person is a billionaire asshole who probably like paved that railroad over the corpses of not only like the people who laid the tracks, but the people who lived there before. And that's so important to acknowledge in the Western genre. And I'm really glad we're seeing that movement towards representing that part of the history. But Travis, you look like you want to say something.
And
Well,
the mountain of buffalo skulls that started this question.
Yes.
If I can jump in and provide a little inside baseball. So chapter 1 of Baroness of the Eastern Seaboard, the place that the letter is posted from is Christchurch, 28 Bull Street, Johnson Square, Savannah, Georgia, March the 1st, 1866. That place is the place where she is writing that letter from is one of the largest flesh trading markets in the 1860s. And so for those of you doing the history study at home, her family wealth comes from the flesh trade. Now, you don't know that. Like the vast majority of people, they don't know that, right? But I do, right? And that's why when we talk about the Society of Prometheus, like, oh, like, are they so bad? I'm like, these flesh trading motherfucks decided, sorry, I'm getting super mad about it now. Y'all get a little bit of insight on my writing process here. These people want to tell you what the world should be, which is the innate challenge when trying to write, because I will admit, writing from the perspective of any person who comes from a vast wealth that comes from the slave trade is an enormously frustrating position for me. It's a deeply uncomfortable position for me to write from. And I will say with that for those who know history, for those of you who, or for the people who know that what Georgia was in 1866, even during this time frame, this is a place of oppression that she's writing a love letter from. And her own love is an oppression on Clara May because she can only understand a place of power. She can only understand a place of subjugation. And Clara May is simply a representation of, I will put my subjugation on the world and live in the world that I have created. And that makes me upset, but I think that that's a good place to write from as a writer, to make that character also compelling, because slavers had loves. They had deep enthusiasms. Does that make them good people? No, it doesn't. Does it make them compelling? Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think.
And
Jeremy,
that's a place where realism only helps a story, right?
Right.
Because like you said, everybody is the protagonist of their own story.
Right.
Jeremy,
Yeah.
and then Ray.
Yeah, I fully agree that most people only know that the Baroness is rock lady hard for human suffering. And that's pretty cool. That if people are going to go that extra layer, that they will find that. But, to the point about Westerns, it's a thing where Western is this interesting sort of codified nomenclature that can refer to both a genre and a setting for a story. And for those reasons, because of that, there is a reason why my favorite Westerns are like parodies of that genre and setting in the form of, firstly, Support Your Local Sheriff, which is basically the story of what would happen if my dad was in the Old West, and Blazing Saddles, which is just, great. And I think everyone should should probably watch that if they can find it, wherever that's streaming, or if you have DVDs, everybody, you know. But yeah,
For those
like,
who love DVDs.
for those who love DVDs, I know I'm a full generation behind. Well, 2 generations behind what people are using to watch.
What about our
Because
Laserdisc
I'm a
fans?
very old man.
Laserdisc.
Easy.
Laserdiscs,
Don't
yes.
don't age yourself on this podcast, my man.
Oh, it's hard not to.
Don't worry, I'm still only a hobbit who has just come of age.
Mhm.
So that's nice.
Two
But-
things.
Two
Two things before Ray. First, the Laserdisc and the whole pornography industry thing. Very crazy story. Second, the DVD, Amazon's whole contract dispute thing. I very highly suggest this is not an endorsement from Fermented Fiction, but as a person with an individual view,
Go ahead, brother.
start buying DVDs, people. Start buying physical media. We need it.
Should
We
I
need
also
it.
start investing in gold?
Maybe
also
not
think I should
gold.
do that?
That I think is maybe a little too far, but the DVDs, yeah, you don't own what you buy on Amazon. That's all. I'm gonna say.
Exactly. Physical
Right.
media is forever. Buy laser discs.
That's right. If not VHS.
Yeah,
Hey, a VHS, you can put that thing back together, baby.
I just want to talk a little, like, I related a lot to Becca, what you were saying. Like, Seth's work was really my introduction to Westerns at all, no less a horror Western. And I want to talk a little deeper about why that is. And I think it's a challenge that extends beyond just the Western. And it gets back to what we were talking about a little bit in terms of like the predominant stories that we hear are about a white man who saves the day. And this happens in Western, noir, action thrillers, I'm sure many more genres, superhero stuff traditionally. And like, that has never, none of those genres, I have always had trouble being interested in any of those genres. And I think Seth has done a really great job, Becca's done a really great job, and others talking about how important it is to give voice to a wide, variety of people in these genres. And I think not only is that like the right thing to do ethically and a more historically accurate thing to do, but I want to talk specifically, right, to any men, white men who might be listening. I think there can be a tendency to see that as some kind of like charitable act. Like, I have done, look how magnanimous I am that I have included diverse characters in my story, or like I have a strong female protagonist. And like, I think it can be viewed as like this kind of, look at me, I'm so forward thinking. But I want to say to those people specifically, and it's definitely not everyone, but there are some, the reason that those kinds of media are so uninteresting to me is because they are boring. They are boring to everyone who is not you. Literally boring. They are so transparently a power fantasy that white men have for themselves, and at times feel almost masturbatory in a way that it is impossible for me, I don't want to speak beyond myself, to connect with those narratives at all. They don't feel real, they don't feel grounded, and they don't feel relatable in any way. So I say this specifically, not to anyone on this panel, but to who might be watching and thinking like, yeah, well, all right, I guess I'll include some people of color in my Western or whatever, and thinking of it as this like charity act that they're doing. They're like, no, actually, if you're in that headspace, your story probably sucks. It's probably really boring to people who are not exactly like you. And I'll tell you right now, most readers are not straight white men. They are simply not. Maybe in some genres, but even in those cases, even if that is the majority of your readers, it is a less interesting story, full stop. These power fantasies.
So
Sure, go ahead, Seth.
if I can just interject for a second. So we're bringing it full circle back to G.K. Chesterton, who at one point said, He wrote an essay called On the Golden Rule of George Bernard Shaw. It was a critique of George Bernard Shaw. He said, one of the challenges of the Christian movement is that they oftentimes see charity and do not realize that people are not interested in charity. They are interested in justice. And writing diverse characters inside of your novels, inside of your stories, is not an act of charity. It's an act of justice, because those people, it is not, you are not giving them those stories. They deserve those stories. And that's the difference. Charity is getting what you do not deserve. Justice is giving you what you do deserve.
Yeah.
And those voices deserve justice and deserve to have their moment in the sun, as Hemingway would say.
Yeah.
I.e., the glorification of Carnegie is charity, whereas
Correct.
the giving of a voice to the people who built his fucking railroads and his steel mills and everything else he fucking built his mansions upon, that's actually justice.
Yeah.
Right.
I see your hand, Becca. I do want to say, Ray, I love what you said, because it's something I've been raging against specifically from, and I hope this doesn't bite us in the ass in the future, but specifically from Marvel and Disney, is like, don't give me stories about these like diverse cultures written by the same directors you've had for your like 6 movies previously. Just have directors from those cultures write a story about their culture. Like I want to hear an honest story. I don't want to hear a person who's outside of that culture try and write a story about that culture. That's dishonest. It's not correct, in my opinion. So I think you spoke exactly to that. Of
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Travis is right. Marvel and Disney can bite my ass.
like if I'm going to write a story about Montana, I'm going to write it from the lens that I know, which is I'm a white guy from Cutbank. Like that's the story I know. That's where I grew up. I'm not going to try and implement every checkbox thing just to sell a book. Like I'm going to write.
I love you, Travis. I think you're wonderful and filled with an inalienable
please
dignity.
push back.
But what I want is for Becca to be able to make her point, and then I'd love to be able to push back on that point.
Becca, go ahead, and then CS is going to push back.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, yeah, I completely agree with what Ray said. And I think I'm not a writer, but I feel like in this day, even if you're writing about something that happened in the past, it should be an expectation to be able to include different types of people in your books. And I mean, it reaches also just a wider audience, but there's so many stories that aren't told by so many people. And, history has been rewritten by, victors and things. So I think it's really important, seeing like queer representation in like these older novels, and just seeing people who come from different like communities, so like they're Native people being able to be shown to have had a life and show that they were in that time and that their impact and lives matter during it. I think that's really important. And I think personally, even if you're not part of a community, I think you can still be able to write other voices in a respectful way, and in a way that comes across as being not performative, but something that is just very like real and very honest. And yeah, that's.
And to add a little
Personally.
nuance before maybe CS pushes
Look
back
at
on
you.
me. Maybe I
Look
can
at
get
you
ahead
putting
of
up a stockade before I
Maybe
come
I can
after
get
your
it.
fortification.
Maybe I can get ahead of the pushback. Is if you are going to write outside of your culture, you already said it, CS. So it's not even me pulling anything new in. You said it about your own books. Do your research. Like do your research and do it very carefully and respectfully. And I think that's the big thing. Is I have another friend that's been on the show, SK Ira. She's a wonderful author and comes from a certain demographic, but she writes about demographics outside of her own. And she is one of the most intelligent and diligent researchers I've ever met. And so she writes these stories outside of her culture, but she takes the time and respects the cultures she is writing about. So,
right. And I am certain that writer does that because she comes from an unrespected culture, which is women. Right. Now, I'm going to try to be as cool about this as I can be. A couple of weeks ago, I received an email from someone who asked me specifically the question, What authority do you have to write from this perspective? They were specifically speaking about the Black experience in America. What authority do you have? Okay. There is no authority that can exist inside of white writers when writing about the Black experience in the United States, full stop. There is no authority that can be presented, and any authority that is presented is without question grade A, 100% horseshit from top to bottom. So there is no authority that can be presented, but there is a responsibility. There is a responsibility that if you're going to present these underrepresented cultures, you must come at it from a place of humility. You must come at it from a place of respect. And I would even say that anyone who has or who is seeing this podcast, or who may ever come across this podcast at this point in time or in the future, wherever you're at, if you look like me, or if you are like me, it is your responsibility to not only write within your scope as a man who was born only in Montana and only able to provide that scope. It is your responsibility to expand your scope. George R. R. Martin says, any man who lives only one life, but the man who reads lives 1,000 lives. And every single author must, in their own way, to their best ability, represent all 1,000 lives all at once, all the time, in every single novel that they write. Or else, as Rae said, you are performing a masturbatory ritual that does nothing to extend the length and power of the gift that the novel is in the Western canon. It is incumbent upon you. It is a necessity that you must be better than those who came before, or else you have done nothing to increase the heirloom of storytelling in the time that you're living in.
Rae?
Yeah, this is obviously a huge conversation, a really nuanced conversation, but I just wanted to add that I think there's a distinction to be made between including diverse experiences and exploiting the trauma of a marginalized group for profit, right? There's a big distinction there. And Seth, I agree with everything you said as well, but I just want to point that out too, that I think there are meaningful ways that a white person can write about other, identities, experiences, taking caution that at no point, I do not think that there is any responsible way or any amount of research that could justify exploiting the trauma of that identity for profit, right? I think that is its own sort of thing that I would struggle to ever see as a justifiable thing to do.
Clay?
Agreed. And I think that's what Travis was speaking to when he spoke of writing from own voices, writing from own perspectives, or ticking boxes, so to speak, right? That is masturbatory. That is going for profit. That is including something that is deeply important and deeply harmful to these groups just to line your own pockets, and that is unacceptable. That said, on your note too there, CS, it is important that we advance the genres we write in. It is important that we tell those stories no matter what demographic we come from. Do the work, do the research. And I promise you that if you do those things, if you are genuine in your pursuit to advance the story of cultures that are not being told, of people who are not having their voices heard, they will respect it too. Like, I'm writing a novel right now that I haven't told anybody about because I have no earthly idea when it will
Fermented fiction first, right here. Beep, beep, beep,
yes.
beep, beep.
I've been writing it for like 5 years. Don't get too excited, anybody. It's a George R. R. Martin situation, except nobody cares if it gets finished. But I have approached the Blackfeet tribe about it on numerous occasions. And when I went to a specific member of the Blackfeet tribe who's a high-ranking member of the tribe to ask for sensitivity reading and historical research and stuff, I was very afraid to do so. I was very hesitant. I was very cautious. But her reception of me and her encouragement for me to tell this story after reading what I had done was extremely, extremely encouraging. And she said, own that shit. She said, write this story. That people want their stories to be told. If it is told in the right way and it is told in this respectful fashion, you don't need authority. You just need fucking respect. And I think that's
Yeah.
what it all boils down to.
Yeah,
So
honesty.
that's what I have to say about that. Don't be afraid to tell the stories you're passionate about and the stories you care about. As long as you're being respectful, I think people will be willing to help you out and give you the knowledge and the advice that you need to tell that story the right way.
If I could
All
just bounce off that quick
Go ahead, Rae.
play, because I think what you're saying is wonderful. And not saying it explicitly is that if you're going to do this, absolutely go to a person, a group, and talk about this. And if that person or group says, I do not think you should do that, be willing to not
Yes.
do the thing. And like I'm speaking, so I'm a person in long-term recovery. I've had multiple people over the years come to me and say, I want to write a novel where the main character is an active addiction. And, you know, it's about their trauma. And I go, I don't think you should do that. Why do you want to do that? You don't know anything about that. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
And like, I hope that those people then did not do that. Right. So I think being willing to not do the thing is very important.
Yeah. Becca, then Jeremy, and then I have one final question to kind of wrap us up.
Okay, I just wanted to acknowledge that this entire panel is, white presenting people. I apologize if I got that wrong. Please correct me. But I think it's important, while we're saying all of these things, there's also other people in other communities who might feel differently, and just being open to being told, like, no, you got this wrong, or no, this is not how we feel. And again, like how other people were saying, bringing this up to people who are parts of those communities and really listening to them and having, readers after, like, if you've written the book, people's from those communities reading it and being like, is this a correct portrayal? Am I doing something wrong? And then being able to get feedback from there and growing the book. I think, again, I'm not a writer, but I think is an important perspective. And just so, everyone feels like it's done in an appropriate and respectful way, because it's not your culture potentially, but it is someone else's, and they should be portrayed in books and media the way that they should be portrayed.
Right. And that is why authors should at all times be willing and able to invest in sensitivity readers. The Massacre of Yellow Hill, A Red Winter in the West, The Light of a Black Star, they all went through sensitivity readership. And I took the feedback from those people who read those books and I implemented it into the story, no matter what my position was on it at the time, because that's irrelevant. Well, your position on it doesn't fucking matter. What matters is that the work that you put in the world affects the world that you are living in. And so you have to be responsible for that. Again, not to get too hot about it, I'm just saying, use sensitivity readers. It's that simple. Anyway, go ahead, Jeremy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. Get hot about it. You should. And I feel the same way, because like I don't, as a person who, and I apologize for this, is a straight white man. I don't feel any need or desire to be right, but I do need to be correct. So if you have the correct information that I should be using, please do correct me. And that goes back to the point we were talking about before. Do not write for the sake of jacking it. As a neurodivergent person, which I've spoken about briefly, I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 29. And going back to some of the media that I enjoyed previously, I found like, oh, wow, I was the butt of the joke a lot of the time. So like, it's weird seeing the flip to my own representation being either awful or done completely by accident by people trying to write robots or weirdos, with almost no exceptions in the entirety of fiction. So like, research is good, and you can always learn a bit more.
I wanna kind of maybe put a little wrap on this, and if there's any other comments before my last question on this particular part of the topic. I think CS mentioned something earlier that relates to this, and correct me if I'm wrong. John Wayne was mentioned, and I have a lot of personal feelings about John Wayne, of like his movies. And CS, you've talked a lot about virtues and people represent virtues, and I love that. And I think John Wayne's movies represent particular virtues, and as well as Cormac McCarthy here represent particular types of novels and virtues, but then their personal lives are vastly different. And I think that's very important to recognize, of like, are we separating the artist from the art? That's a very big debate. But even deeper than that, are we seeing within the story the truth that we can take for our lives, and we can actually walk away from? And I think, Seth, you do that incredibly well. You take us into a genre that has a lot of baggage, the Western, and you give us diverse views, but at the same time you represent this historical views, and we can take away from your books this beautiful representation of both the evil and the good, and we can see within that the characters that we disagree with, that we do agree with, and I think you do represent in your novels, in your series, this virtue versus unvirtuous behavior. And I would maybe like you to speak to that. And then I do have one more question, if everyone's willing to stay on for that last kind of round. But this branches off of the conversation we've been having of how did you do that?
Okay. We'll have this conversation.
No, there's a lot there. There's a lot there.
Yeah. No, we'll have this conversation. Inside the heart of every person, there's an inalienable dignity. Now, I talk about it a lot in my work. You'll hear something about the wellspring. I talk about this a lot. It's super important to me. Virtue, all virtue, I alluded to this a little bit earlier, all virtue is rooted in love. It has to be, or else it's not virtue. It can be philosophy. It can be religion. It can be pragmatism. It can be a lot of things. But if the idea of a thing isn't rooted in love, then it can't be virtuous. Now, that's a sticky position to be in, right? Love's a big word. But I will say, it was an interesting point y'all brought up. You asked the question, is the Baroness redeemable? And one of the points that I would make to that position is, in her mind, the Baroness has been redeemed. Her redemption isn't the redemption of Aristophanes or Anaximander or Plato or Jesus, or not anyone. But to her, the redemption comes in the act of a great sacrifice. Now, is that to the Western ear, that hears like it's sort of a dark version of redemption, right? But it's redemption nonetheless, right? Her love and sacrifice is a very real thing. And to answer your question, no, she does not believe that she and Clara May will see each other in an afterlife, because that's not the point. The point was not, the point was, I will kill you in order to make the world better, which is a tremendous vocal position that white Americans have made for the last 250 years without saying it at all. I will kill you to make the world that I want. And that's the position of the order of, or the society of Prometheus, right? So in trying to balance that inside the heart of every person, there's a wellspring, there's an inalienable dignity that is worth loving. And it's why Clara May can fall in love with the Baroness. It's why Sven can fall in love with Larry. It's because there is a connection point between two people, and sometimes it is completely irreversible. It is irrefutable, irrepressible, right? I see you, you see me. And that connection point feels cosmic. It feels like a mirror looking at itself, even though the reflection is entirely another person. And that thing is irrefutable. It cannot be pushed away. You can use all the philosophy that you want against it, but in truth, love will have its way. And in that way, love does not, or the man does not choose the love chooses him, right? And in that love, we find our own virtue. Those virtues sometimes fit the morals that we're living on in the time, and sometimes they do not. But that virtue is unapologetic because it knows the truth of itself. And to speak to Cormac McCarthy, the truth of itself is the thing, right? It exists without the need of consent for anyone, simply because it exists and it's undeniable, right? So virtue, unvirtuous, you can call it whatever you want. In the end, love is at the root of everything, all nature, all relationships, all learning, love or the lack of it, to quote Fred Rogers, right? To quote Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
And that love inside of every character, I say this without any sort of ego, love is at the root of every single character that I write. It doesn't matter if they're the bad guy or the good guy. They have fallen in love with an idea, and they will not be kept from that love being manifested in the world in a powerful and transformative way. So, I mean, that's what I would say about virtue and unvirtue.
I love that. Jeremy, we'll get to you. I love what you said about virtue is at the thing, specifically to a person we've talked about a little bit, John Wayne, of like the virtue that
Brother, we can get into it if you want to get into it.
We
about
won't get
John
into
Wayne.
it. We won't get into it. Maybe it's StokerCon. But the virtue of a movie like The Cowboys I can pull from without the person that is acting as that part. I love that.
Yeah.
Jeremy, and then I have one final question, conclude us, and then we will rate your book, CSM.
Oh, so good. Well, I think, I do have to kind of unequivocally agree with Seth, which is weird for someone who I have so violently disagreed with in the past, and who, in fact, did dedicate this entire book we're talking about to someone who, on this very show, came out as my own nemesis, which explains a lot of the struggles I've had in my life. Thank you, Rae. I also see you. But yeah, I think love as the baseline of a person's morality is like the best possible starting point for creating a character and what they do and what they think is right. Every single person loves differently, and as such, every person draws a different line around what is and is not acceptable. I, for one, draw the line at death cults. I try to avoid as much as I possibly can, but some other people won't, and it's out of love that say the Baroness holds Claire May in such high esteem, even for the point of sacrifice. She's the Baroness is pulling a Thanos at that point, and that's sometimes that'll just happen. That doesn't mean it's not love, it just means that not all love is healthy. I don't know. Maybe she just needs therapy or something. Who knows?
Clay, and then we will go to our ratings.
And if you haven't read Ray's book, I Can Fix Her, Not All Love is Healthy, is essentially the whole vibe.
That is
of
correct.
Excellent book. I was just going to say, I think that regardless of what you believe, love is at the center of your motivations anyway. We're all here because we love something. Becca, you're here because you love to read. Josh, CS, Rae, me, Jeremy, we're all here because we love to write. Travis, you're here because you love to read. You love to talk about movies. That's why this show exists, because Travis and I were in the deep depressions of COVID, and we were like, do you want to like be brothers again and stuff and like talk about shit we think is cool? And he was like, yeah. Well, I was like, yeah, it was Travis's idea. And here we are, you know, love has brought this group of people together, right? Love creates everything. Love destroys everything. And I think at the end of the day, there are few greater things you can base any character, any plot, any theme around, because it is the universal most powerful force in human existence. And you've demonstrated that in your saga, Seth. So well done.
Thank you very much.
And speaking of love, we got to rank this thing. But before we do, Collin has to leave. He has love for both this podcast, for all of the people on this panel, and for his child. He had a kid, so he's got to go. Thank you, Collin, for being part of this Fermented Fiction podcast. All right. Our arbitrary ranking, for anyone who's new to this podcast, we have no sense to this thing. It is not a 5-star. It is not a 10-star. It is how many drinks, whether alcoholic or not, or even we've even done a little bit of
whatever substance you prefer.
Whatever substance you prefer.
Really go wild.
How much of that do you need to enjoy Baroness of the Eastern Seaboard? And I'm going to start with Josh Rountree. What do you think? How much substance do you need to enjoy this book?
I mean, I need zero. I need zero substance to enjoy this book. I don't need any sort of enhancement. I just completely fell in love with Massacre at Yellow Hill when I read it, and I dove into the second book as fast as I could. And since that point, I've read them all before they were published, and I literally, I get super excited every time I get an email and there's something new that's written in there. So no, I never approach these under any kind of substance or duress. I give them all the marks.
All the marks. I love it. Thank you, Josh. Jeremy, you're next on my screen. What are you given? How many drinks to enjoy Baroness?
We do actually have to get into this a little bit. For one thing, I as something that I only had the ebook to read, which I take great exception to. I did actually end up needing 2 Excedrin and 1 Seagram's spiked lemonade to actually read this enjoyably. Now, that's almost 0% the fault of the book itself. That's more just life circumstances that forced me to set that as the baseline. Well, here we are. Well, I think for one thing, we do need to add some amount of drink for the 6 different people who have been contributing in the comments this entire time. That is to say, Nightworms, Zeb, Marguerite, Turley, Deanna Leatherman, John McMahon, and Joe Wilkinson, who literally just
Here we go.
as I was speaking. So I hope you feel heard. But so, in addition to that, I'd say anytime we start a portion of the book with a letter from someone to someone else, obviously get something and then have something to sip on the entire time. I think the total arrives at 20 to 30, depending on how fast you read.
That's a
Love
lot.
it. Love it.
Respectable score.
That's spread out across a couple days. I mean, the average human reads 50 pages an hour. So, you're spreading that out. That's good. Becca, how many drinks or substances to enjoy this book?
To the fullest.
stone cold sober. Maybe a Shirley Temple if I'm feeling a little crazy because I want to enjoy myself. But that is no alcohol in it. I mean, I'm very honest with my reviews, and I'm not gonna lie, when I initially read To Carry a Body to Its Resting Place, I was kind of looking for things that I didn't like about it because I was so surprised that I loved it so much. I like sat down in my chair and I just read the entire thing in one sitting. And as I commented on my Goodreads and also TikTok, I was crying a lot at the end. So that's how I know it's a good book, if I am just sobbing, and I appreciate that. And it's just like such an incredible series. I fell in love with it. So no drinks needed.
Love it. Clay, what do you think?
You know, I read this book in 3 sittings. And I'm here at Harvest, so it has not been ideal reading circumstances. I'm getting in from this book is excellent, my friend. This is not a segue or anything like that. I loved it.
Sure.
I read it in 3 sittings, but I am coming in from the fields after like a 16-hour day and then reading from like 10 p.m. to like midnight or 1 in the morning. And because I'm also a very slow reader. So I read this book sober for 2 of the sittings, and then for the end, I sipped 2 beers while I read it. And I really, really enjoyed both of those experiences. I don't think you need alcohol at all to enjoy this book, but I will say that if you like to have a drink while you read, as I do, I think that this book benefits from that as well. The gunfight at the end, I will be completely frank, I'm not the biggest fan of the like big shootout ending. I'm a realism fan, and whenever realism is being too edged out of the conversation, I get a little persnickety. So the gunfight scene at the end, I think I probably benefited from a couple beers being in me and being like, yeah, I can believe this. But it was great, man. So you don't need it, but it doesn't hurt either. If you're a fan of sipping a couple drinks, don't get drunk when you read this book. It's too emotional for that.
Yeah, that'd be trouble.
I'm going to give myself the next review. I fully agree with my brother. I am also in the midst of teaching 9 different classes, which is insane. So I have a lot of reading to do, but I've read this in the off thing, and you don't need to be drunk, but I do enjoy a good glass of bourbon every time I pick this book up. And holy crap, CS has captured a diverse view of the West, and I'm a big Western fan. And he did it. He did it. He blended those genres incredibly well. So take a glass of bourbon, just a sipper. Don't chug, don't take shots. Just take a sipper of bourbon and read it for the 50 pages an hour that every average human reads at. And you'll be sitting pretty. You'll get those themes in, you'll get those characters in, and CS writes characters better than most people I know. Yeah, that's my rating. We're gonna end with Rae and then Seth. Rae first. How many drinks? You don't drink, but how many substances to enjoy this book?
How many menthols?
I've been stone cold sober since 2012, which means number 1, you should all be very afraid of me. And number 2, clearly I was not under any kind of influence when reading this book, which I've done multiple times. So I would say not only do I think this book needs nothing to give you everything, right? But I would actually caution, especially any sapphic women who might be listening to this. If you were to take any sort of substance to put you in a more emotional state, 90% chance you do end up in a death cult. So a stern warning, okay?
Yeah, you're gonna only get thirstier no matter how much you drink.
That's trouble.
Seth, tell everyone who you are, where to find you, and how many drinks you take to read your own book.
Well, like I said at the top of our long podcast, that again, I'm deeply appreciative of being on. I'm a relatively obscure Houstonian author, simply trying to tell the truth in only the way I know how to do, which is telling stories about the conflict inside the human heart, which, again, to steal from your boy, Ernest Hemingway. Or actually, no, that's Faulkner. That's not Hemingway.
I love him more.
Okay, I hear you. You love big vocabulary. I totally get it. I started this off by talking about a statement from Orson Welles, and I'll do the exact same thing here. Orson Welles, in that same speech from the AFI Lifetime Achievement Award, says that my father once told me that the ability for someone to receive a compliment is, above all things, the sign of a civilized man. And it is a deep compliment to me that all these people would take the time out of their lives to be able to talk about a book that I wrote, no matter whether it's of any genre. And so I'm deeply appreciative of the people who have both read the book, who took time out of their day to try and understand or learn more about me by reading the book, and hopefully learned more about themselves while reading it as well. So you have my full appreciation and my deepest sense of gratitude for the willingness to do that. So thank you for giving me time on your platform. And above all things, thank you for giving me your time in general. So thank each and every one of you. How many drinks do you need? How many substances do you need? The answer is, if love is in your life, you need 0. That's how I feel.
I love
And
that.
Jeremy's
Seth.
like, 20 or 30. Maybe.
20 or 30. Seth, Josh, Ray, Jeremy, Becca, and Collin, who left. We really appreciate you answering our questions. And Clay, I'm going to let you bring us out, but I really appreciate you being willing to dive into the depths of the questions that I've asked.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here. This has been the inaugural book launch fermented fiction style deal. And we were so glad to do it for Baroness of the Eastern Seaboard. Thank you, C.S. Humble, for bringing this to us. And thank you so much for coming on the show. As always, everybody, it has been a true pleasure to host you. It has been a true pleasure to explore Western horror with you through this saga that is so beautiful. Go out and buy every single book written by C.S. Humble. Buy every book by Josh Rountree while you're at it. Buy every book by Rae Wilde. And, if you're really, really tired of, if you're not tired, I should say, of reading after all that, you can buy my books and shit too. And
Crevasse. That is Crevasse that I would advise people to read.
Thank you, Seth. Yes, Crevasse. That does exist. By me. And you can comment, subscribe to Fermented Fiction, do all those things, because we are here weekly with authors, and we are doing debates just like this and conversations just like this every single week, every month, except for the summer. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next week when we have CJ Lead debating the Twilight films. That's going to be next Wednesday around this same time, so we hope to see you there. Goodbye.
Bye. We did it.
Seth,
Success.
Seth, I cannot wait to